Welcome to L&M Channel. This time we will make a new drama storyline entitled Love Next Door. The Korean drama Love Next Door is ready to present a fresh and entertaining love story. This 2024 drama will feature stunning chemistry between Bae Seok-Ryu, played by Jung So-Min, and Choi Seung-Hyo, played by Jung Hae-In. This drama promises a perfect blend of laughter, tears, and heart palpitations, typical of the romantic comedy genre. With the background of the elegant architectural world and unexpected twists of life. By revealing the story of two souls who are reunited by fate, after sharing a unique past, until it's a shame to miss. A group of mothers go hiking together. They brag about their body treatments. Among them, there are two women who show off their children. They are Seok-Ryu's mother and Seung-Hyo's mother. Seung-Hyo meets the president and gets an architecture award. And Seok-Ryu works at the most prestigious company in the world and graduated from a famous university in America. Seung-Hyo also helped design the New York Arts Center and won an International Architecture Award, while Seok-Ryu is the best employee at a global company filled with geniuses. Seok-Ryu's mother and Seung-Hyo can't seem to stop showing off their children's advantages. Until their friends memorize their stories and being annoyed. In the magazine award, there are friends who are looking for Seung-Hyo. But they can't find him, and soon it will be Seung-Hyo's turn to receive the award. When Seung-Hyo's name is called, he finally comes on time. And he receives the magazine design creative award.
atelier
Seok-Ryu's mother gives her daughter's wedding invitation to her friends. Even though her daughter will get married in the United States, she printed the invitation in Korea. And currently Seung-Hyo doesn't have a girlfriend because he is busy with work. But Seok-Ryu's mother feels that being busy is just an excuse because her daughter is also busy but can still date. And the wedding will be held in a month. But now Seok-Ryu is taking a flight and returning to Korea. Moim is surprised to see her friend already at the airport. She is so surprised that she doesn't take a shower and get dressed to meet Seok-Ryu. Moim is a paramedic who is always there for Seok-Ryu. Moim sees that Seok-Ryu is thin. Is she on a diet because of the wedding? And Seok-Ryu apparently didn't tell her mother that she was returning to Korea. At the after party, Seung-Hyo saw the famous actress Ro Yoon-seo. It turned out that they met briefly at the oblique launching ceremony. And when his friends wanted to greet her, Seung-Hyo didn't want to. Even though that woman was adored by every young man. But Seung-Hyo was more interested in other things than her and left the party. While Seok-Ryu and Moim were eating, a man came who ordered food at the stall. Seok-Ryu asked Moim to hide from the man. And it turned out that he was Seok-Ryu's younger brother. Of course, Moim was suspicious. Why Seok-Ryu was hiding from her younger brother? Was she hiding something? It turns out that all of her family did not know that Seok-Ryu would be coming home and she planned to make a surprise. Moim and Seok-Ryu brought balloons to decorate the house and surprise them. And Seok-Ryu asked Moim to accompany her all day, no matter what happened. But suddenly Moim got a call from her boss and left Seok-Ryu. Seok-Ryu stopped at a building that used to be a sauna. Her mother and Seung-Hyo's mother had invited them to bathe together in the sauna when they were little. Suddenly Seung-Hyo was behind her and Seok-Ryu released the balloon until it flew. They were both surprised at each other. Then Seung-Hyo asked Seok-Ryu to leave his area, and at that time she saw her mother and father coming. Then she hid behind a cardboard box and made Seung-Hyo confused. Seok-Ryu asked him to help her and not tell them that Seok-Ryu was there. His mother was happy to see Seung-Hyo there. When they saw the suitcase, they thought it was Seung-Hyo's suitcase. At first Seung-Hyo denied it, and because they wanted to take it to the police station, then Seung-Hyo said it was his. Seok-Ryu's mother was curious about the contents of the box, because Seung-Hyo always held it. Seung-Hyo said there was no way there was anyone in the box, and he kicked the box and made Seok-Ryu shocked. They all left and Seung-Hyo held the box so that Seok-Ryu couldn't get out. He was curious why Seok-Ryu avoided her father and mother. Seok-Ryu didn't answer and tore the box and success to get out. Suddenly Seok-Ryu wanted to go to the toilet and she entered Seung-Hyo's office. While inside, Seok-Ryu actually commented on Seung-Hyo's office and disturbed him. They teased each other and suddenly Seung-Hyo discussed Seok-Ryu's fiancé. It turned out that her mother was handing out wedding invitations for Seung-Hyo and wanted to buy a plane ticket for him. And he congratulated Seok-Ryu on her wedding. Suddenly, Seok-Ryu ran to Seung-Hyo's room and entered the room. When she saw the ceiling in the room, Seok-Ryu liked it. It turned out that it held the principle, the sky is round and the earth is square. But Seung-Hyo thought that Seok-Ryu didn't understand art and asked her to leave. When Seok-Ryu walked, her foot was hit by a rope, and at that time, Seung-Hyo held a cupboard that almost fell and Seung-Hyo's back was hit by something heavy. Seung-Hyo was in pain and Seok-Ryu checked his back. She saw bruises and also scars from when he was little. Seung-Hyo felt that his body was bruised and battered from all the trouble that Seok-Ryu caused. Seung-Hyo didn't expect an apology, he just asked her to leave. He didn't care at all about what Seok-Ryu did. He asked Seok-Ryu to solve her problems with her mother. Moim got an emergency call and immediately rushed to the scene. She received a call that a man had fainted and was injured on the forehead. But the man didn't want to go to the hospital and asked Moim to leave. He was angry and Moim threatened to record the man. Of course the man was angry and broke a bottle. Then a civilian tried to help Moim because of the dangerous situation. Moim felt whether it was because she was a woman so the civilian helped her. But while running the civilian fell and injured his hand. Then Moim kicked the bottle that the man was holding, and the civilian just looked at her. Seok-Ryu felt Seung-Hyo was following her. But Seung-Hyo explained that because their houses were next to each other, so he just passed the same road. When she saw the helmet, Seok-Ryu planned to borrow the helmet to protect her head. Then she wore layers of clothes that were in his suitcase. Seung-Hyo felt Seok-Ryu was like a puffer fish. Then Seok-Ryu asked him to hit her body, because she wanted to check if it was safe for her. Suddenly Seok-Ryu invited Seung-Hyo to spend the night with her. Hearing that Seung-Hyo was shocked and thought she was crazy, Seok-Ryu admitted that she made a big problem. She went home just to tell her mother and face her, but now she can't meet her. Then Seok-Ryu said that she called off her engagement.
이모.
And at that time her mother was behind her and hearing Seok-Ryu's words. Seok-Ryu was a bit shocked and tried to act normal. She then admitted to her father and mother that she had cancelled the engagement and would not get married. Hearing that her father was very shocked and felt like he was dreaming. Her mother felt that her daughter was crazy for cancelling the engagement a month before getting married. She tried to hit Seok-Ryu, but Seung-Hyo blocked her. Seok-Ryu still tried to defend herself. That there are 3 types of people who get married: stupid people, poor people and masochists. Getting married is like leaving a festival before it even starts. Her mother asked if her future son-in-law was having an affair. But Seok-Ryu said that it was not his fault. And her mother wondered if her daughter was having an affair? Seok-Ryu just kept quiet and they thought that Seok-Ryu was really having an affair. Her mother became very angry and hit Seok-Ryu. But Seok-Ryu hid behind Seung-Hyo and made him get hit by her mother. Her father asked his wife to calm down and listen to their daughter's explanation. There's no way she would do that without a reason. Then her mother tried to calm down and would listen to her daughter's words. But Seok-Ryu admitted that she quit her job and now unemployed. Hearing that, her father, mother and younger brother, who had just arrived, were shocked. When her mother hit Seung-Hyo, Seok-Ryu asked him to run. She explained that she saved Seung-Hyo from being beaten up. But actually, the one who made him beaten up was Seok-Ryu. And they ran while holding hands. Seok-Ryu threw Seung-Hyo's hand away because she was annoyed and tired. Seung-Hyo felt that she was the one who held it first, but instead threw his hand away. Seung-Hyo thought Seok-Ryu should exercise so she wouldn't be this tired. Then Seok-Ryu asked Seung-Hyo to stand near a tree and cover her body. She made Seung-Hyo as a changing room and she takes off her clothes one by one. It seems like Seok-Ryu doesn't consider Seung-Hyo as an adult man. Seok-Ryu thinks she should have looked at her mother's face more closely because she missed her. And Seung-Hyo thinks Seok-Ryu should have told the truth that she didn't have an affair. Seung-Hyo feels that Seok-Ryu is not doing well. Because she made two big decisions at once, only dolls are not affected by that. Seok-Ryu just feels that her life is too hot. While studying in Korea, suddenly she has to study in America and adapt there. Then, she works and gets engaged. Her life is always at full speed until it burdens her CPU. The screen goes dark and the buttons stop working. So there is no choice but to reset herself. That's the reason she quit her job and cancelled the engagement.
상해버리기 전에 돌아와야 했어.
While they were chatting, suddenly a couple asked for they to take a picture. After Seung-Hyo took the picture, the woman offered a photo to Seung-Hyo and Seok-Ryu, but they both answered no. The couple thought that it seemed like they had been dating for quite a while. And Seok-Ryu answered that he was just the son of her mother's friend. Then Seung-Hyo got a call from Seok-Ryu's brother. Her mother said she wouldn't hit Seok-Ryu anymore because she was out of energy. And Seung-Hyo asked Seok-Ryu to go home and finish it quietly. But Seok-Ryu was sure that her mother would break her promise and hit her again. Then Seung-Hyo offered to accompany Seok-Ryu. Because Eunmi Seok liked him more than her own daughter. Seok-Ryu didn't feel ready to go into the house, but Seung-Hyo rang the doorbell and they went in together. Seung-Hyo thought her mother was crying and Seok-Ryu immediately approached her. She apologized and asked her mother to stop crying. But it turned out that her mother was holding a piece of wood with an angry face. Seeing that, Seok-Ryu tried to get out of the house, but was blocked by Seung-Hyo. He holding the door so that Seok-Ryu can't get out. Then Seok-Ryu asked her mother to listen to her. But her mother pulled her hand and Seung-Hyo left them. Because she's back, the place will be noisy again. During high school, Seok-Ryu invited Seung-Hyo to work part-time. Seung-Hyo felt that Seok-Ryu was being worked on because it turned out that the work was too hard. But Seok-Ryu felt that the work was useful because he could exercise while inhaling the aroma of meat. Seung-Hyo felt that his friend was crazy and also optimistic. Seung-Hyo couldn't stand it anymore and decided to end his part-time job. But Seok-Ryu persuaded him to stay and not let him go. After getting her salary, Seok-Hyo immediately went shopping. Seung-Hyo wondered why she never had savings, because she always spent her salary. It turned out that she bought a gold brooch for her mother. And her mother was very happy when she got the gift. In the morning at Seok-Ryu's family, Mrs. Misak prepares breakfast for her family. When Seok-Ryu joins the dining table, her mother doesn't give her a bowl. Her father thinks his daughter looks thin, at least give her something to eat. But her mother asks about what Seok-Ryu said last night. Her mother still doesn't believe that Seok-Ryu is cheating. Maybe her daughter likes to do strange things, but not something like that. Seok-Ryu explains that she is just bored because she has been working for the same company for too long. Then she thinks, will she get bored with her marriage too? So, she stopped both of them. Her mother was still holding back her emotions and asked about Seok-Ryu's plan. What Seok-Ryu would do, first of all, was to turn off the alarm and sleep as long as possible. She would also eat as much Korean food as possible and not do anything. She wanted to be a happy unemployed person. And Seok-Ryu was serious about what she said, so her mother didn't let her get any food. When her younger brother woke up shirtless, suddenly the doorbell rang. It turned out to be Seung-Hyo and Moim. When Moim entered, she immediately checked Seok-Ryu's health, because she was very worried. While Seung-Hyo brought pumpkin porridge for Aunt Misak. Then Mrs. Misak prepares a bowl for them. Seok-Ryu feels that her family is very generous. Their daughter is left hungry, but the guest is given food. And Moim, with attention, shares food with Seok-Ryu. Moim is still curious why Seok-Ryu cancelled the engagement and quit her job. It turns out that she was told by Seok-Ryu's mother to ask that. It really doesn't make sense, because an exemplary woman like her does something like that. No one lives as diligently as she does. Seok-Ryu has competitiveness, courage, drive, achievement, thoroughness and persistence. So why would someone like Seok-Ryu throw all that away and choose to go home? But Seok-Ryu still didn't answer and Moim left because she was late for work. Suddenly Seok-Ryu called Seung-Hyo to come closer. She asked Seung-Hyo to sit near her. But when Seung-Hyo approached, Seok-Ryu strangled him because he handed her over to her mother. Seung-Hyo felt like he couldn't breathe and called Aunt Misak. And his aunt came in and hit Seok-Ryu. She was very worried about Seung-Hyo than her own daughter. People would think that he was her son. Then her mother asked Seok-Ryu to bring rice cakes to Seung-Hyo's office. Of course, Seung-Hyo was happy because she had been cared for. Seok-Ryu came to Seung-Hyo's office with rice cakes. While Seok-Ryu was waiting for Seung-Hyo, she chatted with Myung-woo. Myung-woo was shocked when he found out that Seok-Ryu was a childhood friend who lived in the same complex as Seung-Hyo. He also invited Seok-Ryu to come to the office opening event. The female staff wanted to know the story when Seung-Hyo was still small. Then Seok-Ryu tells in the summer of 1995. She saw Seung-Hyo standing in front of her house and got to know him. He always hid behind his mother and made her think that she had to help the fragile child. Then, Seok-Ryu invited him to play creatively. She protected and kept him clean when he was a toddler. Seok-Ryu also created healthy food so that he could get the right nutrition. She influenced his social development in their peer group. Basically, Seok-Ryu raised Seung-Hyo. Seung-Hyo came and kicked Seok-Ryu out for spreading false rumors. He asked his co-workers not to believe Seok-Ryu's story. Seung-Hyo felt like she was the first crazy person he had ever met. He felt it from the beginning of their meeting. Seok-Ryu was very aggressive, and it burdened him. But Seok-Ryu never left him alone. Seok-Ryu disturbed his peaceful solitude. She also harassed him when Seung-Hyo urinated. She also gave him food that she didn't want. Seok-Ryu called him a greenhorn and kept telling him to watch while playing. And all his money turned into ice cream and chocolate and ended up in her mouth. Seok-Ryu felt like she was just helping him because he couldn't take off his pants. His co-workers felt like they were very close. They had never seen Seung-Hyo act like that. There was the story of a novel that drives her crazy, namely the story of childhood friends.
유명합니다.
When Seok-Ryu was cooking on the roof, Moim approached her. She called Seung-Hyo to come, but Seok-Ryu forbade her. Then Seung-Hyo came and joined them. Seok-Ryu felt that Seung-Hyo was ruining the atmosphere and told him to leave. Because Seung-Hyo didn't bring a drink, Moim went to buy a drink and left the two of them. Seok-Ryu thought that Seung-Hyo was too busy to come. Because when he was at the office earlier it seemed like there was a serious problem. Seok-Ryu guessed that Seung-Hyo had a problem. But seeing the burnt food, Seung-Hyo thought that Seok-Ryu had a problem. Seung-Hyo offered to cook, but Seok-Ryu forbade him, because it hurt her pride. Then Seung-Hyo asked how long Seok-Ryu would hide it because they would ask the reason. At least don't tell An-mi-sak for too long because she is Seok-Ryu's mother. Seok-Ryu felt that Seung-Hyo was being told by her mother to ask. Then she strangled Seung-Hyo's neck again until Seung-Hyo was in pain. It turned out that Seok-Ryu was fired from the company she worked for. Because she always worked alone and finished her work alone. They thought Seok-Ryu was arrogant and selfish and never relaxed. And when she was down, her fiancé couldn't be contacted, even though Seok-Ryu needed her the most at that time. She came to a party and saw her fiancé kissing another girl.
안 내리세요?
While on the road, Seok-Ryu saw a pomegranate tree and bought it. She gave the tree to Seung-Hyo as a gift for his office opening. Pomegranates symbolize abundance. Every time the leaves fall, his company will also wither. Seung-Hyo thought Seok-Ryu was cursing him and asked her to bring it tomorrow to the event. But Seok-Ryu said that she couldn't come to the event because she had an important appointment. The next day, her mother looked for the brooch that Seok-Ryu had given her before. Her mother wanted to wear it because her school friends would come and they were always dressed neatly. Then Seok-Ryu helped her mother find the brooch. While searching, Seok-Ryu found cosmetics that she had sent from the United States. Her mother didn't open it because she would wear for special occasions. But it's been a long time, it's not good to wear it after the expiration date. Finally, Seung-Hyo's office opening ceremony begins. Seung-Hyo asked about Seok-Ryu's whereabouts, because her mother came alone. Then Seok-Ryu's mother and Seung-Hyo's mother's school friends come. While enjoying their meal, they discuss Mrs. Mi-sak about her daughter's cancelled engagement. They are curious about what the problem why the engagement was cancelled. Mrs. Mi-sak explains that she was just being careful because marriage is a big thing. And when they tease her, Seung-Hyo's mother defends Mrs. Mi-sak. Because times have changed, there's nothing wrong with changing our mind. So don't ruin the mood and talk about something else. While in the toilet, they are still talking about Seok-Ryu's cancelled engagement. And at that time Mrs. Mi-sak inside and hear the conversation. They feel that Seok-Ryu is not successful because her engagement is cancelled. Seok-Ryu comes to Seung-Hyo's office and looks for her mother. Seung-Hyo feels that Seok-Ryu is being chased by someone because she seems to be in a hurry. Since she has come, Seung-Hyo will get a dish for Seok-Ryu. Finally, Seok-Ryu meets her mother and brings the brooch that she found. Her mother feels that people will gossip if they see Seok-Ryu there, and Seok-Ryu thinks that her mother is embarrassed because of her. Her classmates see Seok-Ryu and greet her. Her mother says that Seok-Ryu is just taking a break from her work for a while, and she will be recruited by a better company. She also says that Seok-Ryu will return to America. Seok-Ryu just keeps quiet when her mother says that. Seok-Ryu comes home and goes straight to her room. She thinks her mother is very good at lying. Is it because she is afraid that Seok-Ryu will embarrass her? Her mother didn't lie because Seok-Ryu was going to America. Seok-Ryu felt that her mother didn't like her being at home, so her room was removed. Her mother confirmed it and asked Seok-Ryu to pack. Then her mother took Seok-Ryu's suitcase and put it down. Her mother felt crazy because her daughter was like that. How could Seok-Ryu do that after her mother raised her? Her mother didn't care how miserable her life was. Her mother was able to endure it as long as Seok-Ryu lived well. Seok-Ryu asked if canceling the engagement and quitting work was considered a betrayal. Has her mother ever thought, has Seok-Ryu not had enough sleep all this time? Or how rarely has she had fun all this time that she acted stupid? Can't her mother at least understand her feelings? Seok-Ryu came back because of difficulties, because she always worked hard. So, can't her mother praise her hard work and tell her to rest? Her mother felt that Seok-Ryu was her proud daughter, so don't waste the opportunity. But Seok-Ryu felt, why should she be a sweetener in her mother's life? Seung-Hyo saw Seok-Ryu, who looked sad and looking for her. With her face covered by hair, Seung-Hyo was surprised to see Seok-Ryu on the swing. Seok-Ryu acted normal back and climbed the climbing frame. She was surprised when Seung-Hyo was already beside her. She still thought of Seung-Hyo as a little boy who was afraid of heights. Even though now she is a tall man who is 34 years old. When she was little, Seok-Ryu thought she would grow tall enough to touch the sky when she was an adult. Then it rained, but Seung-Hyo only bought one umbrella and Seok-Ryu closer to Seung-Hyo so she wouldn't get wet. Suddenly Seok-Ryu laughed because she remembered a funny story when she was little. When Seung-Hyo was alone in the park and cried all night. And when Seok-Ryu told another funny story, Seung-Hyo just kept quiet. He folded the umbrella and asked Seok-Ryu to choose one. Don't force laughter if you really want to cry. Hearing that, Seok-Ryu cried. Mrs. Misak carries Seok-Ryu's suitcase back to her room. While tidying up the blanket, her brooch fell, and she still couldn't believe what happened. She wore the brooch and cried alone in Seok-Ryu's room. Seung-Hyo saw Seok-Ryu's makeup was gone and she looked bad. But she felt no need to appear beautiful in front of Seung-Hyo. Seok-Ryu felt that her mother hated her and she still hates her mother until now. According to Seung-Hyo, your high hopes, your beliefs, and your love for someone are related. So Seok-Ryu won't hate someone she doesn't love. Suddenly they saw star falling and Seok-Ryu asked to make a request. Seung-Hyo hopes his company doesn't go bankrupt. He just takes big risks and is afraid of falling. They don't have new clients and the design fee hasn't been paid yet. Then Seok-Ryu invites Seung-Hyo to collect people who haven't paid his company by wearing a tiger print shirt. Seung-Hyo feels that his friend is not normal. Then Seung-Hyo invites her to a food stall. He will try and face anything so that his company doesn't bankrupt. Because he didn't want to see Seok-Ryu wearing a leopard print shirt.
우동 먹을래.
In the morning, Seok-Ryu left with a document. And when she came home, she was surprised when she opened her room door. It turned out that her mother asked Seung-Hyo for help to tidy up Seok-Ryu's room. She called Seung-Hyo to prepare Seok-Ryu's room because she didn't let her sleep in the warehouse. Seeing her mother wearing a brooch, Seok-Ryu was very happy. Her mother also cooked expensive food and Seok-Ryu ate it with gusto. Seok-Ryu was surprised to see the sky in her room full of stars. It turned out that Seok-Ryu had decorated her room with star stickers in the past. She called Seung-Hyo and wondered how he could make the stars so similar to the ones she had stuck on before. Seung-Hyo also turned back time, with the furniture in Seok-Ryu's room the same as before. Then Seung-Hyo asked Seok-Ryu to close the curtains tightly. She opened the curtains and saw Seung-Hyo in front of her. It turned out that Seung-Hyo moved and lived across from Seok-Ryu's house. Hearing that, Seok-Ryu remembered when she fell and was caught by Seung-Hyo. When Seung-Hyo was in high school, he was a swimming athlete. There will be a national swimming championship in Seoul, but Seung-Hyo's father and mother cannot watch when Seung-Hyo competes. But his coach still encourages Seung-Hyo to win and enter the national team. And he also has a #1 fan. She is Seok-Ryu, who encourages Seung-Hyo to win. The match begins and Seok-Ryu doesn't stop shouting to encourage Seung-Hyo. Finally, Seung-Hyo wins first place, and Seok-Ryu is also happy. Seung-Hyo was surprised when Noyeon gave him a surprise. It turns out they got a big offer from the top company in Korea. From a prestigious retirement community. When Myung-woo was excited, Seung-Hyo was worried about his plans. Seung-Hyo felt that his company depended on the plants because if they withered, they could go bankrupt. It was a pomegranate plant given by Seok-Ryu. In front of the laptop, Seung-Hyo looked enthusiastic. It turned out, he was watching the design competition Haein-Jung High School Gymnasium renovation. That is the school where Seung-Hyo and Seok-Ryu went to high school. Meanwhile Seok-Ryu was busy in front of her laptop. It turned out that she made a schedule for Bae Seok-Ryu to be idle. The first schedule was to play games, followed by relaxing. At 2 p.m., she watched TV until she took a nap. Seok-Ryu felt bored and called Seung-Hyo. She invited Seung-Hyo to read comics when Seung-Hyo came home from work. But he didn't want to and hung up.
내가 너 아니면 친구 없냐?
Because Seung-Hyo didn't want to, Seok-Ryu invited Mo-im to read comics. Mo-im felt that all comics were boring and she saw adult-only comics. Seok-Ryu immediately invited Mo-im to take them while no one was looking. But it turned out that Mo-im meant a comic about fresh red blood. And Seung-Hyo also came to that place even though he didn't want to come before. He gave the excuse that he was looking for the book he was looking for. When he was holding the princess book, Mo-im and Seok-Ryu felt suspicious. And when they finish reading, Seok-Ryu invites them to go somewhere. But Mo-im has to go home and study, because she has to prepare a motorboat certification. And Seung-Hyo also has to go back to the office, because there is still work. Seok-Ryu disappointed and feels that her friends are corporate slaves. At the shop, Seok-Ryu's father and mother are busy with many foods orders. Then Seok-Ryu takes the initiative to help them. But her mother forbids her and asks her not to bother. Suddenly, Seok-Ryu's homeroom teacher, Mrs. Yu, when she was in high school, comes and Seok-Ryu is surprised and happy to see her. It turns out she wants to order 20 tteokbokki and 20 sundaes. Because it's so much, Seok-Ryu helps carry it to school. Mrs. Yu is very happy when she hears that Seok-Ryu works at Grape in the United States. Hearing that Seok-Ryu just keeps quiet. Then they see Seung-Hyo at that school. It turns out he registered for the renovation design competency in the new gymnasium building. Experts from the Department of Education who will evaluate, and Mrs. Yu has no authority. Mrs. Yu asks Seok-Ryu to talk to the students because she feels that Seok-Ryu can be a good example for them. They must be happy because Seok-Ryu works at Grape. Mrs. Yu introduces Seok-Ryu in front of the students as an alumnus who is now working at Grape in the United States. They welcome her happily. Because Seok-Ryu didn't prepare anything, she asked them to just ask questions. Someone asked where Seok-Ryu studied. That Seok-Ryu studied in the United States because she got a scholarship there. They also think Seok-Ryu is very cool. And when they ask what her dreams are, Seok-Ryu just keeps quiet. When she leaves the building, Seung-Hyo is waiting for her, but Seok-Ryu just ignores him. Then Seung-Hyo asks Seok-Ryu to come with him and grabs her shirt. Seok-Ryu is angry because Seung-Hyo dares to grab a woman's neck. But Seung-Hyo doesn't think of Seok-Ryu as a woman. He says that Seok-Ryu is almost neutral. It turns out that they are digging the ground around the school to find the time capsule they kept 10 years ago. But Seok-Ryu is reluctant to look for it because the letter must be full of beautiful and innocent words. Then Seok-Ryu asks why Seung-Hyo is pretending that Seok-Ryu is still working at Grape. Seung-Hyo feels that Seok-Ryu has real experience because she once worked at Grape. He thinks that is enough to motivate them. Seok-Ryu is tired because the time capsule is hard to find even though she has been digging for a long time. She leaves the place and Seung-Hyo follows her. At home, Seok-Ryu sees her mother busy working until her hands are full of patches. She wants to help her, but her mother forbids her. Because that is her mother's job and her mother asks Seok-Ryu to just take care of her work. Seok-Ryu sees her younger brother Dong-jin, who doesn't help his mother's work. But her mother feels that Dong-jin has found his true self. Although it is only part-time, but he gets a salary. The owner of the fitness center helps him become a personal trainer. Meanwhile, Seung-Hyo studies gymnasium at the school. Myung-woo feels that public facilities do not make money and are full of procedures. And the meeting with the client tomorrow is very important for them now. Maybe it seems that Seung-Hyo has a reputation and their company is doing well. But that field is not easy, so he asks Seung-Hyo to close the swimming pool and open a retirement community because it is a project that will make money. Mo-im and the rescue team get an emergency call. There is a child having a seizure and he also has epilepsy. They take him by ambulance, but the road is jammed. When Mo-im asks vehicle users to open the way, they don't move. Then there is a man who tries to open the way by telling the car owners, one by one, what he did work and the ambulance was able to pass thanks to him. It turns out that he is Kong Dango, the man that Mo-im helped before. Finally, Seung-Hyo and Myung-woo attend a meeting about the retirement community project. The building will be a very beautiful building because it is located in the heart of Seoul. It will be a place that cannot be accessed or seen by just anyone. But Seung-Hyo feels that they underestimate public facilities. If people can't see it, how high will the building be built? Will people's necks hurt from looking at it? Hearing that, Myung-woo immediately straightened out the conversation and made Seung-Hyo calm down. Seok-Ryu met a woman at a restaurant. Seok-Ryu was confused. How did she know her number? It turned out that she heard that a talented woman had returned home, so he looked for information. When he asked the reason for returning home, Seok-Ryu only answered that it was for personal reasons. He felt that Seok-Ryu's career and portfolio were very impressive, so it was not a problem. Then, he offered Seok-Ryu a job position. At that time Seung-Hyo saw Seok-Ryu and waited for her. He wondered why Seok-Ryu was wearing clothes like that. And Seok-Ryu was surprised because she always met Seung-Hyo. Seung-Hyo followed Seok-Ryu, who was drinking water from the tap and teasing Seung-Hyo. He felt that all of Seok-Ryu's actions were unpredictable, and her choice of clothes was also wrong. Seok-Ryu said that she had met a job recruiter. Seok-Ryu don't know where she got her phone number from, and she offered her several positions at Glow Career and Serendipity. The job was similar to the one Seok-Ryu worked at before, so it was easy to adapt. Then Seung-Hyo asked if Seok-Ryu wanted to do that job again. Because previously Seok-Ryu was exhausted and could no longer do it, Seung-Hyo felt that Seok-Ryu would return to her past. He only hoped that Seok-Ryu would find her true dream. But Seok-Ryu felt that only rich people could dream. They had the opportunity to rise after failing to pursue their dreams. While she often lived in Siberia, the wind pierced her bones with snow, rain and hail. Seung-Hyo knew how it felt because he had experienced it. In the past, Seok-Ryu gave him a towel as a gift before he competed. The towel words, Choi Seung-Hyo, 2008 Beijing Olympics, win gold. At first Seung-Hyo didn't want to bring it because it was embarrassing, but when he saw Seok-Ryu, he wanted to bring it. When in front of the crosswalk, he saw the towel with a smile. And when he crossed, a car hit him. Seok-Ryu felt very sad when she found out about the accident. She went to the hospital and crying. His father said that with rehabilitation, Seung-Hyo would be able to walk. But according to him, he would not be able to have a career as an athlete. Hearing that, Seung-Hyo cries alone in the room. There is an awkward feeling when Seung-Hyo meets Myung-woo at the office. Then Noyeon invites Seung-Hyo to talk because she has a talent for counseling. She thinks Seung-Hyo is right, covering up plagiarism is rude. So don't let it be destroyed because of plagiarism. But Myung-woo is also right. He wants to work in an office with a decent salary. For that, the company must be healthy. Because of the nature of architecture, they are always tied to clients. For the progress and glory of Atelier, she asked for good cooperation between Seung-Hyo and Myung-woo. Then Seung-Hyo enters Myung-woo's room and brings him coffee. He apologizes for yesterday's incident. Myung-woo knows his decision was wrong, but pretends otherwise. Seung-Hyo also feels that he has been selfish. If they part with Myung-woo, his company could fail. So, they have to stay together if they don't want to starve. And the two of them make up and will work together. Seok-Ryu is seen daydreaming alone near the school field. When student asked about her dream, it turns out to be number one in everything. Becoming her mother's proud daughter, and all the teachers proud her. Remembering it makes her regret it a little. Because she prioritizes other people's views, without caring about herself. When throwing out the trash, Mrs. Yu hears something. She was surprised when she saw Seok-Ryu stirring the soil there. Then Mrs. Yu gives tea to Seok-Ryu. And Seok-Ryu apologizes for surprising her. She looks for the time capsule that she buried with Seung-Hyo and also Moim. Seok-Ryu then admits that she is no longer working at Grape. She doesn't know whether to stop or run away. Mrs. Yu realizes something after teaching for so long. She asks Seok-Ryu not to change her mind, be sure and forget. Then Mrs. Yu asks her to go to the swimming pool because Seung-Hyo is there. Seok-Ryu sees Seung-Hyo sitting near the swimming pool. It turns out that he is holding Seok-Ryu's letter that is in the time capsule. He teases Seok-Ryu by reading her letter out loud. Seok-Ryu chases him and telling him to stop. Then Seung-Hyo jumps into the pool because he knows Seok-Ryu can't swim. It turns out that it was the first time after Seung-Hyo stopped swimming. In the past, when he didn't swim, Seok-Ryu entered his room with a comic. And at that time Seung-Hyo didn't want to be disturbed and told her to get out. With recklessness Seok-Ryu climbs the stairs and goes up to Seung-Hyo's room. She almost falls and Seung-Hyo holds her. Seung-Hyo can't believe it because Seok-Ryu did something crazy. Seok-Ryu thought Seung-Hyo would become human after a century in the cave. And Seung-Hyo thought Seok-Ryu was a slow person because she couldn't tell the difference between what was allowed and what wasn't. Then Seok-Ryu cursed Seung-Hyo and made him angry. Seung-Hyo felt like trash and couldn't do anything. Doesn't Seok-Ryu know how he feels? Seok-Ryu then asked if he felt better, because this is the first time Seung-Hyo has spoken in a month. Then Seok-Ryu takes out an axe. She will dismantle it if Seung-Hyo locks the door again. Seung-Hyo feels that Seok-Ryu is a crazy person who wields an axe at a bear that locks itself in a cave. Seok-Ryu, who used to be cheerful and energetic, but now too soft, not funny and boring. Then Seok-Ryu does something reckless again by jumping into the swimming pool. Seung-Hyo laughs seeing Seok-Ryu, who has difficulty breathing. He holds Seok-Ryu and wonders why she jumped if she can't swim. Seung-Hyo asks her to calm down and relax so she doesn't drown. But Seok-Ryu just grabs his hair because she's almost drowning. Seung-Hyo keeps holding Seok-Ryu who can float. Seok-Ryu is actually nervous and wants to stop because she's tired. Wants to rest and dream of something new. But she feels like she's nothing without her background in Grape. Everyone is moving forward, only she stops. Seung-Hyo is like that after he stops swimming. He feels like it will be hard to find a place to swim freely again. But he found it, so Seok-Ryu will be like that too. Seok-Ryu is still doubtful whether he can live a new life too. Then Seung-Hyo asks, what is her plan if Seok-Ryu returns to before her engagement was cancelled? It turns out that Seok-Ryu doesn't want to return.
됐어, 그럼.
Seung-Hyo wrote a letter 10 years ago that said, 10 years from now feels like a long time. Seung-Hyo may have expressed his feelings to Seok-Ryu. After Seung-Hyo heard Seok-Ryu's answer that she did not return to her engagement moment, Seung-Hyo just stared at Seok-Ryu. But Seok-Ryu sneezed in Seung-Hyo's face and made him want to let Seok-Ryu sink into the water. Then she wore Seung-Hyo's clothes that he brought in his car. Seung-Hyo teased her by saying that Seok-Ryu was very short. Of course, Seok-Ryu was annoyed because until junior high school she was taller than Seung-Hyo. Then she wanted to take and open the time capsule. Finally, Seok-Ryu opened the time capsule, but there were only 2 letters, while Moin's letter was not there. They read their respective letters. Seok-Ryu felt she was very silly, while Seung-Hyo seemed surprised by the contents of his own letter. Then Seok-Ryu asked to exchange letters, but Seung-Hyo refused. Seok-Ryu suspected that Seung-Hyo was bad-mouthing her because it seemed like there was something to hide. She chased Seung-Hyo, but failed to catch him. Seok-Ryu was very curious about what he actually wrote. At home, Seung-Hyo reads his letter again. He doesn't believe what he wrote, that 10 years from now he will express his feelings to Seok-Ryu. He feels that at that time he was still young, unstable, and had no goals, so he had feelings like that. He feels that he had lost his mind and that feeling was long gone. Seok-Ryu bumps into Seung-Hyo and Seung-Hyo thinks it was a hit and run. It turns out that Seok-Ryu planned to go to the library because she wanted to find her dream through self-exploration. But Seung-Hyo just walked and ignored her.
그러면
It turns out that Seok-Ryu went to Seung-Hyo's office and asked for free coffee there. Then Myung-woo came in a commotion. It turned out that Grape contracted them. Grape will build a new office in Seoul. They want to work with a local firm, and Atelier got a recommendation.
What?
When they read the email from Grape, they felt confused because they weren't good at English. Then Seok-Ryu translated the email. Grape's procedures are complicated, so there will be a lot of discussion. Communication skills will be important and they are very thorough. Then Myung-woo asked Seok-Ryu to help them and will pay her as a part-time worker. Seung-Hyo asked Myung-woo not to take advantage of her. But then Seok-Ryu is willing to help them.
제가 도와드릴게요.
Seung-Hyo feels worried because Seok-Ryu will be involved with Grape again. It's because there is Seung-Hyo, so Seok-Ryu wants to help. Then Seok-Ryu invites Seung-Hyo to eat, but Seung-Hyo is still busy working and asks her to go. But she doesn't want to and instead shows her comics to Seung-Hyo. And Seung-Hyo wears earphones, continues his work again. Moim and Dan-ho meet at the convenience store by taking the same drink. They are happy to meet again. It turns out that Dan-ho has just moved to the area around Moim's house. And they are still holding the same drink and don't want anyone to give in. It turns out that that's their favorite drink. And at that time Seung-Hyo and Seok-Ryu were also there. Dan-ho didn't expect to meet Seung-Hyo because he had covered news about Seung-Hyo. They ate toast and enjoyed drinks together. When he saw Seok-Ryu, Dan-ho felt familiar with her. Dan-ho felt confused when they asked where he used to live. Then he said he suddenly had something to do and left them.
말 실수였어?
Moim felt strange and suspicious why Dan-ho suddenly left. He avoided being asked where he lived. Seung-Hyo felt he just didn't want to discuss personal matters. Then Seok-Ryu asked why they didn't find Moim's letter in the time capsule. It turns out that Moim had dug it up first and took the letter. She also read the letters from her two friends. There was nothing strange in Seok-Ryu's letter, while Seung-Hyo's letter, she didn't remember it. Seung-Hyo, who was a bit awkward, pretended to get a call and avoided them. He was worried that Moim had read his letter.
야, 컴플레인 그거 힘들...
They had a meeting via video call with Grape. Seok-Ryu did her job as their translator. And Grape will soon visit and meet them. Myung-woo felt that everything was going smoothly because Seok-Ryu was there. But Seung-Hyo felt that Seok-Ryu was not sincere enough. And they didn't care about Seung-Hyo's words because they followed each other on social media. Then Myung-woo asked why Seok-Ryu left Grape. Because working at Grape is the best job. Seok-Ryu has not had time to answer, but suddenly Myung-woo gets a call. It was a work call and they left Seok-Ryu. Seung-Hyo discusses the Grape project with Myung-woo. Myung-woo looks very excited and Seung-Hyo can only smile. He feels sure that Grape will choose them, but Seung-Hyo asks him not to get his hopes up. Myung-woo trusts Seung-Hyo. As long as Seung-Hyo is there, he is not afraid of the Wowon team.
아빠.
Dan-ho is tidying up his new house. He finds the 2007 swimming championship file. He sees a photo of Seung-Hyo when he was a swimmer. Then he sends a photo to Seung-Hyo when he was with Seok-Ryu.
승효야.
Seung-Hyo did not expect to see Seok-Ryu in front of his office. He is confused because previously Seok-Ryu no longer wanted to get involved. Seok-Ryu doesn't want Seung-Hyo to be teased for not being able to speak English. If necessary, she will curse them. Seok-Ryu was shocked when he saw his former co-workers at Grape. It turned out that Chris was the head of product designer for Grape. He will play an important role, communicating in and out of the organization for the project. Chris was happy to meet Seok-Ryu again. At that time Seok-Ryu suddenly said he wanted to go home to Korea, so he was very disappointed. According to him, Seok-Ryu was enthusiastic and committed to his work. And he could always rely on her.
Always trust her to get that.
In the past, when at Grape her co-workers made Seok-Ryu do the task alone. Chris pretended to support Seok-Ryu as a team. He praised Seok-Ryu as a very responsible person and considered her the captain. At that time Seok-Ryu listened their conversation. They flattered Seok-Ryu because they knew that Seok-Ryu would finish their work if flattered. Chris felt she lacked affection because she really expected praise and flattery. They considered Seok-Ryu as an AI who would finish their job, and at that time Chris just smiled when he saw Seok-Ryu. During the meeting Seok-Ryu was a little nervous and spilled water. Then they asked for a short break. Chris asked to end the meeting, but Jennifer liked the proposal from Seung-Hyo's team. According to her, it would be a shame to decide to choose Wowon. And when Jennifer received the call, Seok-Ryu passed by and Chris greeted her. He mentioned the incident 3 years ago to Seok-Ryu. Seok-Ryu asked him not to bring it up. She knew Grape had chosen Wowon, but Seok-Ryu would pretend not to know. For the sake of her colleagues who had tried hard. So, she asked Chris to watch his attitude. Chris felt a great loss for Seok-Ryu because she was a smart software and easy to manipulate. Suddenly Seung-Hyo came and pushed Chris's body. He was angry with Chris's words. Seung-Hyo didn't expect honesty, but that was harassment. But Chris, instead called Seung-Hyo's company, is a small company that dared to design a new building for Grape. Hearing that, Seung-Hyo was very angry, and when he was about to hit Chris, Seok-Ryu stopped him. Chris was still big-mouthed and was going to report Seung-Hyo. But then Seok-Ryu calmed Chris down and said that she quit her job without having to be paid. She had nothing to do with Atelier anymore, so don't involve their company. But Chris was still arrogant and asked Seok-Ryu to beg him to forgive them. Seok-Ryu had lost her patience and hit Chris hard. It was a gift for her former subordinate, who was rude. Seok-Ryu felt that Chris knew that she was a persistent and diligent worker. This company is bigger than him, so don't mess with Atelier in. Seok-Ryu will collect evidence of exploitation of his subcontractors, product plagiarism, negligence and manipulation. She will send it as a parcel to Grape. When Seok-Ryu left, Seung-Hyo chased her, but Seok-Ryu didn't want to be disturbed by anyone. Seung-Hyo followed and walked behind Seok-Ryu. He brought sandals for Seok-Ryu because he knew her feet hurt from wearing high heels. Then Seok-Ryu wore the sandals and felt comfortable. She admitted to Seung-Hyo that she was alienated in Grape. At first, she blamed Chris and the others, but she realized after seeing Seung-Hyo working If she enjoyed her job like Seung-Hyo, she would have been able to survive until the end. But Seung-Hyo felt that their behavior to Seok-Ryu was harassment in the workplace. It has nothing to do with liking it or not. It doesn't make sense for the victim to blame herself. Then Seung-Hyo asked Seok-Ryu to follow him.
이제 좀 실례니까.
They were on the padlock bridge and Seung-Hyo asked Seok-Ryu to write the name of the person who harassed her. It turned out that Seung-Hyo cursed Chris with writing on the padlock. Seok-Ryu felt that his friend was childish. But then she mentioned Chris's bad points and Seung-Hyo wrote it until his writing didn't fit in the padlock. They hope Chris can feel the power of the curse from all over Korea. Seok-Ryu feels better now because she has poured out her frustration. She also feels impressed with Seung-Hyo's presentation in front of Grape. Even though he knows he will fail, he never gives up and that's amazing. So Seok-Ryu has decided to find a place to achieve her goals.
좋네.
At that time Seung-Hyo got a call from Myung-woo. He gave the news that Grape gave them a project. Not an office building, but their main store, which will open next year in Seoul. Seung-Hyo was very happy to hear the happy news. And Chris was fired from Grape because during the meeting, it turned out that Myung-woo recorded them. He didn't think that it could be evidence of a crime. Myung-woo knows someone and follows each other on social media and they are good friends. He's Tony Brown, the senior vice director of Grape. So, he sent the recording to everyone and Tony Brown also got the recording. After Seung-Hyo hung up the phone, he told the happiness news to Seok-Ryu. And Seok-Ryu is very surprised and happy. She hugs Seung-Hyo and Seung-Hyo just stands there stunned. In the past, after Seung-Hyo won the swimming championship, he saw Seok-Ryu, who was waiting for him. She was willing to skip the exam to see Seung-Hyo compete and miss the cell phone prize that she would get if she got a good score on the exam. Then Seung-Hyo gave his medal and at that time Dan-ho saw them. At that time, Seok-Ryu should have been able to guess Seung-Hyo's feelings. But Seok-Ryu was still innocent and was even curious whether the medal was real gold. Seung-Hyo realized when he saw Seok-Ryu skipping exams to watch his match. There was never a moment when Seung-Hyo hated her. But Seung-Hyo didn't dare to say he liked her. Because he was afraid of ruining their friendship. So, it's better if he says it when he's in his 20s. After they grow up, he hopes to be able to tell Seok-Ryu about his feelings.
했으면 좋겠다.
Back when Seok-Ryu had just gone to United States, Seung-Hyo visited her. They drank together in Seok-Ryu's room. Seung-Hyo also brought various things for Seok-Ryu, which were also given to him by her mother. And when Seung-Hyo showed Seok-Ryu's favorite comic, she was very happy and hugged Seung-Hyo. They looked at each other and it seemed like Seok-Ryu was about to kiss Seung-Hyo. But what happened was Seok-Ryu fell asleep on Seung-Hyo's shoulder because she was too drunk. After Seung-Hyo woke up in Seok-Ryu's dormitory, he saw Seok-Ryu, who was still sleeping, and at that time there was an incoming message on Seok-Ryu's cell phone. It was from Brian and the message said, "Did you forget our date today?" Then Seok-Ryu woke up and Seung-Hyo said there was a message on her cell phone. Seok-Ryu read it happily because it was from her boyfriend. Seung-Hyo seemed surprised when he found out that Seok-Ryu already had a boyfriend. Brian is a Korean who grew up abroad. In the present, Seok-Ryu and Seung-Hyo are walking in a dark room. When Seok-Ryu stumbles, Seung-Hyo catches her and thinks that Seok-Ryu always breaks the rules. But according to her, it is a normal reaction to avoid falling. Seung-Hyo is a bit disappointed why Seok-Ryu is cooking. They should celebrate it by eating delicious food at a restaurant. Seung-Hyo is surprised to see Seok-Ryu, who seems good at cooking. Seung-Hyo's comment on seeing Seok-Ryu's dish is that her food is very green like grass. According to Seok-Ryu, everyone should eat seasonal food, especially spring vegetables. When Seung-Hyo tastes her food, he feels strange why it is so delicious. Is it because he is very hungry, so he is not objective? Seok-Ryu is very enthusiastic and sees Seung-Hyo eating food with a look that sparkles. That makes Seung-Hyo nervous and choked. Then Moim comes and Seung-Hyo goes to find a drink. He avoids because Seok-Ryu gives him a strange look. Her eyes are very friendly, unlike usual.
쓸데없이 동그랗네.
Moim gets a call from her mother, but she is lazy to pick it up. Because her mother wants her to go on a blind date. Moim is confused, because when her father died, when he was 7 years old, her grandmother always blamed her mother. That's why Moim and her mother moved house. According to Moim, marriage is not the answer. And Seok-Ryu really agrees, because she ran away before going through it. However, Moim wants to see Seok-Ryu wearing a wedding dress. Then Seok-Ryu shows a photo of herself wearing a wedding dress. Moim sees it and says Seok-Ryu is very beautiful and has a happy smile. She then asks if Seok-Ryu has forgotten her fiancé. Seok-Ryu answers that she still loves him, and at that time Seung-Hyo came back because he left his wallet behind. He sees a photo of Seok-Ryu wearing a wedding dress. Did Seung-Hyo hear their previous conversation? The mothers are seen visiting a temple. They are there to pray for their sons and daughters to succeed in their lives. Seung-Hyo is surprised to see Seok-Ryu already in his office. That's because Myung-woo invited her and wanted to invite Seok-Ryu to join the Great Main Store project. But Seung-Hyo disagrees because their agreement ended after the presentation. She has a plan, so don't always rely on her. Besides, Seung-Hyo also doesn't want to get her involved in her old company. Then Myung-woo invites her to have a farewell party. Hearing that they agree to eat together,
다 같이 가요.
they go to a restaurant, and the first food is salmon eggs. Seung-Hyo said he likes salmon eggs, but after hearing their story about the salmon that came back to lay eggs, Myung-woo also added that these animals are stuck in the past. Did their first love get left at home? Seung-Hyo feels offended and gives his food to Myung-woo. Myung-woo feels strange because he previously said he liked salmon eggs. Then Noyeon tells them about a novel that contains back to the past. Hearing that, Seung-Hyo tells her to stop reading it. Because people live looking to the future, why go to the past? Everything is in the past, so just forget it and live a new life. Seok-Ryu feels that Seung-Hyo is ruining their situation.
이 뭐야?
While in the park, Moim sees a man who seems to be showing off his butt. It turns out he is Dan-ho, who is looking for a 4-leaf clover. Then Moim helps to find it and finally she finds it. Dan-ho is very happy and unknowingly, he holds Moim's hand. Moim gives it to Dan-ho and he accepts it happily. Seok-Ryu gives tea to Seung-Hyo. She asks if Seung-Hyo really doesn't need it for the project. If he did it for Seok-Ryu, then Seok-Ryu would have set aside time. But Seung-Hyo told Seok-Ryu to pursue her dream and mind her own business. Seok-Ryu only tried to be considerate to Seung-Hyo. And she also thought about her dream more than anyone else. But Seung-Hyo seemed to be angry with her. Seung-Hyo seemed to be venting his frustration or holding a grudge. Suddenly there was a woman who hugged Seung-Hyo from behind. The woman was Seung-Hyo's ex-girlfriend, Jang Tae-hui, and Seung-Hyo felt uncomfortable because she suddenly came. But she came as a client and had a request. Hearing that, of course, Myung-woo was happy because it meant they would get a new project. Tae-hui planned to hire an architect to making various crafts, and at that time she thought of Seung-Hyo. Noyeon was upset because her boss's ex-girlfriend came to the office. It turns out that Seok-Ryu already knows Tae-hui. She's a year older than Seung-Hyo. They met in college and dated for more than a year. Their relationship is passionate because she once saw a car parked in front of her house, and in the car, there was a couple who were kissing. They are Seung-Hyo and Tae-hui. When she told the story, it turned out that they both heard the story and felt ticklish. Tae-hui felt that it was a beautiful memory. Seung-Hyo often told her many things about Seok-Ryu, so she seemed to know her. Tae-hui asked for Seok-Ryu's help to persuade Seung-Hyo to work with her. She invited all the staff at Seung-Hyo's office to come to Tae-hui's studio. At first Seung-Hyo refused, but Myung-woo felt that they needed a vacation to rest. Tae-hui also invited Seok-Ryu to come along, but she refused because she was not a staff at Seung-Hyo's office.
아쉽네요.
While on the road, Seung-Hyo met with Seok-Ryu's father. They then went drinking together. In the morning, Seok-Ryu woke up his younger brother, Dong-jin. But Dong-jin didn't want to wake up, then she woke him up by climbing onto the bed. When she hit him, suddenly Seung-Hyo woke up and held her hand. Seok-Ryu was shocked and Dong-jin saw them as if they were doing something indecent. When Seung-Hyo wanted to explain, his leg hit the table and he was in pain. He had a checkup at the hospital, and at that time his father checked his condition. His leg was sprained and his ligaments were slightly torn. Seok-Ryu thought Seung-Hyo was very whiny, but he did feel pain, because previously, he'd been injured. His father then closed the curtains, because they were disturbing other patients. Seung-Hyo left the hospital with his leg in a cast. It turned out that previously, when Seung-Hyo and Seok-Ryu's father drank together, they continued drinking at Seok-Ryu's house, because at that time his wife was not at home, so no one would stop them. That's why he woke up in Dong-jin's room. Her father asked Seok-Ryu to go home together, but she still had other plans and told her father to go home first. Then she took Seung-Hyo's car keys. She felt she had to take responsibility, because Seung-Hyo's leg had to be casted. At first, Seung-Hyo didn't want to, but he needed help because he couldn't drive. Seung-Hyo was a bit and held the handle tightly. He asked Seok-Ryu to obey the speed limit and not press any buttons. But she pressed the button and made Seung-Hyo's chair go down. She asked Seung-Hyo to enjoy the trip. After arriving, they were greeted by Tae-hui. She was shocked to see Seung-Hyo's leg in cast. Seok-Ryu explained that Seung-Hyo's leg hurt and she was forced to come along to take him. Tae-hui then held Seung-Hyo's hand to help him walk. And Seok-Ryu could only watch them. Tae-hui planned to make doenjang food with the local residents. She needed their help, but Seung-Hyo didn't want to. And Seok-Ryu happily offered to help her. Finally, Seung-Hyo helps them and Seok-Ryu see him with a smile. Then Tae-hui invites Seung-Hyo to talk alone. They enter a room and Tae-hui asks if Seung-Hyo has ever dated again. He answered of course, because he broke up with her a long time ago. Tae-hui feels that Seung-Hyo lets other people come and go. She really wants to ask Seung-Hyo to work together, but also uses that as an excuse to meet Seung-Hyo. She hopes that their meeting will be an opportunity. Then she shows her collection to Seung-Hyo and offers to make it. When Seok-Ryu is looking for a toilet, she sees Seung-Hyo making pottery. She looks at him and suddenly Tae-hui comes and helps him. Seok-Ryu looks at them with a jealous look. She accidentally bumps into something and they get shocked. Seok-Ryu apologizes for disturbing them and goes to look for a toilet. Seok-Ryu apologizes for accidentally bumping into a chair. She thinks they are very matched together, like a scene from the Ghost movie. Seok-Ryu feels that old love can be revived because they meet again. Seung-Hyo stares at Seok-Ryu and warns her not to interfere in other people's business. Myung-woo, Noyeon and other staff come, but Seung-Hyo goes to get some fresh air. He sits alone under a big tree. It turns out that he previously heard Seok-Ryu's conversation with Moim. That Seok-Ryu still loves her fiancé. It seems that's what makes him easily angry with Seok-Ryu. Tae-hui asks for help to carry something. Because it's very heavy, she needs male strength, but Seok-Ryu will help her. She feels strong enough to help Tae-hui. Tae-hui feels that it's too heavy and asks Seok-Ryu to stop. She goes to call for help, but Seok-Ryu pushes it alone. Accidentally she dropped it and she fell too. Seung-Hyo helped her up, but Seok-Ryu was worried about the poster that fell. Seung-Hyo was angry because Seok-Ryu was not careful. Why did she do that if she couldn't take care of herself? Tae-hui asked Seung-Hyo to stop and offered to change clothes. Seok-Ryu was upset because Seung-Hyo scolded and embarrassed her. Moim got an emergency call. She entered the house and there was a small kid in pain. While Dan-ho was on duty, he got a call and immediately rushed off. It turned out that the kid whom Moim helped earlier was named Yan-do, Dan-ho's daughter. Moim took Yan-do to the hospital and at that time she saw a clover in her hand. Dan-ho came and immediately met Yan-do. Moim was shocked when she found out that Dan-ho already had a daughter. Seok-Ryu planned to make kalguksu and they helped her. Noyeon was upset because she was tired of making the dough. Finally, the kalguksu was cooked and they enjoyed it. They really liked the kalguksu cooked by Seok-Ryu. But Seung-Hyo is not seen and misses dinner. Seok-Ryu is very happy because they like her cooking until they ask for more. Moim intends to scold Yeondo's parents if they come. Dan-ho apologizes to Moim, but she doesn't ask for his apology. How could her father leave his sick child alone at home? How could he be successful if he can't take care of a child? There was a clover in Yeondo's hand when Moim saved her. Dan-ho so regrets the incident. Then Tae-hui meets Seung-Hyo and talks with him. When Seok-Ryu said they used to be passionate, that's not true. Because only Tae-hui is passionate, while Seung-Hyo is not. Her love is like a burning candle, while Seung-Hyo is like a small fire in a stove. That's why she broke up with Seung-Hyo. Tae-hui chose a man whose love is burning. But when she decided on Seung-Hyo, Tae-hui felt dumped. She always hoped that Seung-Hyo would burn because of her. But earlier, Seung-Hyo was very angry, yelling at Seok-Ryu and embarrassing her. Tae-hui has never seen him like that. She feels jealous. When Seok-Ryu walks at night, she sees her clothes on a wooden handle. It turns out that Seung-Hyo took her dirty clothes and washed them. Seok-Hyo sees Seok-Ryu and meets her. He can't sleep and sees a white shadow outside. It's because he didn't eat dinner. Then Seok-Ryu offers him kalguksu. Seok-Ryu feels that Seok-Hyo is very kind because he cleaned the stains on her clothes. Seok-Hyo is curious about what Seok-Ryu is looking for. It turns out that she is looking for 100-year-old soy sauce. But there are many jars there. Opening them all will take a long time. Then Seok-Hyo helps to find the soy sauce. Seok-Ryu wonders why he suddenly helps her, even though he always annoyed her before. Seok-Hyo starts a fight and gets upset for no reason. Then Seok-Ryu finds the soy sauce. Seok-Ryu sees the jar full of the night sky, very black and sparkling. Seok-Hyo wonders, because suddenly Seok-Ryu wrote a poem. She also discussed food, with a happy feeling. And Seok-Ryu finally found her dream, she wanted to cook. When Seok-Hyo smiled, he remembered Tae-Hwi's words. That she was jealous, when with Seok-Ryu, Seok-Hyo was not the person she knew. He was useless and childish and always looked at her. Seok-Hyo smiled when Seok-Ryu smiled. He avoided his feelings for so long. He had ignored and denied it. However, seeing Seok-Ryu smile in front of him made him realize that he couldn't hold back his feelings. Seok-Hyo remembers all of Seok-Ryu's first experiences. The first time her teeth fell out. The first time she rode a bike. The first time she ran away from home. The first time she asked a man out on a date. Seok-Hyo has known her for a long time. He thinks he knows everything about Seok-Ryu. And Seok-Ryu's father used to be a chef at a hotel. Then, he worked at a restaurant, and now he runs a tteokbokki shop. Seok-Ryu was called by her mother, who was busy in the kitchen. Her mother asked her to deliver dishes to Seok-Hyo's house. Then she delivered it to Seok-Hyo's house. Seok-Hyo's mother and father were very happy with Seok-Ryu's coming. Seok-Hyo's father thanked her for bringing food. Then Seok-Ryu looked for Seok-Hyo, and his parents said he was in his room. Seok-Ryu entered the room and called Seok-Hyo. Then he remembered to look for his letter in the time capsule. Finally, she found it and immediately read it. This time Seok-Ryu will reveal his dark past. Seok-Hyo, who is taking a shower, remembers the moment when with Seok-Ryu. Seok-Ryu was surprised when she read the letter, which turned out to contain his feelings for Seok-Ryu, and Seok-Hyo immediately took the letter that Seok-Ryu was holding. Seok-Ryu apologized and did not mean to read it secretly. Then Seok-Hyo crumpled and threw away the letter. He explained that it was just a joke, because he was serious about teasing her first. Seok-Ryu smiled because Seok-Hyo surprised her. Then Seok-Hyo asked her to get out because he wanted to change clothes. Seok-Ryu was curious, what's actually wrong with the letter? Seok-Hyo likes her, but it's just a joke. Why did he plan a 10-year joke? He could have denied it, but why did he crumple and throw away the letter? At home, Seok-Ryu watches her YouTube channel. It turns out she has a channel about cooking. When she cooks, she becomes very comfortable and relaxed. She feels like herself when he relaxes. Seok-Ryu meets Seok-Hyo and Tae-Hwi. Seok-Hyo doesn't greet her because he usually meets her every day. Seok-Ryu thanks to Tae-Hwi for giving her soy sauce. Then she invites Seok-Ryu to drink tea, but Seok-Hyo objects because he has to talk about work. Seok-Hyo comes in and Tae-Hwi apologizes. Seok-Ryu thinks Seok-Hyo is upset when she tells him to go back to Tae-Hwi. There's no way Seok-Hyo likes her. And she doesn't care about the letter either.
이유가 뭐야?
Tae-hui wonders why Seung-Hyo wants to work with her. She knows she's just being used as an excuse. Previously, Seung-Hyo was always silent, but in front of Seok-Ryu, Seung-Hyo deliberately said they would work together. Mo-in contacts Seung-Hyo to celebrate because Seok-Ryu signed up for a cooking class. But Seung-Hyo refuses because he has other plans. Seok-Ryu could already guess that he wouldn't come.
건축가님.
Seung-Hyo meets Dan-ho on the way. Then Dan-ho shows him where he lives. It turns out he's Mo-in's neighbor and Dan-ho just found out. Seung-Hyo was surprised when a little kid called him Dad. He introduced himself as his father's childhood friend. Then they chatted in front of Dan-ho's porch. Dan-ho said that he was a good listener, neutral and could guarantee anonymity. Then Seung-Hyo talked about his friend. There was someone he used to like. He thought he had forgotten his feelings for her. But he was a bit confused after seeing her again. He didn't know what to do, so he kept avoiding her. She loved someone else and they almost got married. Although she is single now, he is afraid that the woman will find out. He never confessed his feelings to that woman. Because at first, he did not know his true feelings for her. After that, he did not want to ruin their friendship. When he wanted to confess his feelings, the timing was not right. Then now, he doesn't dare to try. He felt difficult for so long because of that. And now he doesn't want to go back to that time. And it turned out that at that time Mo-in listened to their conversation. She finds out why Seung-Hyo doesn't want to come. Because she's curious, Mo-in takes the time capsule they buried in high school. When she reads Seung-Hyo's letter, she smiles because she can guess that he likes Seok-Ryu. Until now, Seung-Hyo is still pathetic and stupid.
어디서 이상한 소리 들리지?
Dan-ho thinks, if he were his friend, Dan-ho would tell him about a swimmer he knows, whose weakness is being slow when starting a race. But he can overcome it by never giving up. So even though he's late, Dan-ho will tell him to be brave like that swimmer. In the morning, Mrs. Misak woke up her husband who was always late. She also didn't know when her husband would come home because he always came home late at night. She was surprised because her husband always gave the excuse of going to the funeral and giving out money. Hearing his nagging wife, he left again.
창고가 왜 모자라?
On the way, Seok-Ryu met Seung-Hyo. She immediately explained that she was just passing by because her cooking class was nearby. Then Seok-Ryu asked to keep it a secret from her parents. And she said, when the class is over, she will take her cooking home. Seok-Ryu hadn't finished talking, but Seung-Hyo interrupted her and ended the conversation because there was a meeting. But in the office, Seung-Hyo immediately browsed about Korean culinary experts. It was the cooking class that Seok-Ryu was taking.
요리 배우게?
When Seung-Hyo finished drinking with his friends, he saw Seok-Ryu's father with a woman. He remembered when he was little his mother went out with a man. He waited for Seok-Ryu's father in front of his house. They chatted and Mr. Bae was curious why Seung-Hyo was in front of his house. Seung-Hyo explained that Seung-Hyo saw him with a woman. Mr. Bae was very embarrassed because Seung-Hyo saw it like that. He knew very well that he was very self-conscious and asked to keep it a secret from his wife. Seung-Hyo thought that Seok-Ryu would go crazy if she found out. The women chatted together at Mo-in's mother office. They discussed their husbands. Mrs. Misak found it difficult to meet her husband lately. She didn't know what her husband was busy with because he always came home early. Hearing that, they immediately assumed that her husband had been wandering around all night and that it was a serious problem. They asked Mrs. Misak to be careful, maybe he was cheating. Hearing that, she became confused. And when she got home, Mrs. Misak immediately checked her husband's pants. She found evidence of a short-term revolving fund loan. When her husband came home, Mrs. Misak threw a pillow at him. She was angry because her husband had been wandering around after closing the shop. He also applied for a loan without his wife's knowing. And at that time, Seok-Ryu and Dongjin came and saw their parents fighting. When Mrs. Misak asked what really happened, Mr. Bae couldn't answer. Mr. Bae feels that his wife always corners him and he has no choice. Actually, there was an accident when there were two customers eating at his shop. They saw hair in the food and when Seok-Ryu's father checked, someone bumped into the table and the bowl spilled onto the customer's hand. He also admitted that his watch was off and the watch was worth 30 million won. Mr. Bae was shocked and he would cover the repair costs. They refused and asked Mr. Bae to compensate him in full before they sued. That made him do another job as a substitute driver. And the woman Choi Seung-Hyo saw was his customer. When he got the money, he deposited 20 million won. To pay them, he took money from his family's living expenses savings. Mrs. Misak said that her husband was stupid and had no sense. And Mr. Bae feels always belittled by his wife because of his incompetence. The only thing he can do is make tteokbokki. He will do his best to return the money. He asks his wife to stop scolding him. Because he also hurts when he was hit and then he leaves the house. Dongjin calms his mother while Seok-Ryu calms her father. Her father apologizes because Seok-Ryu never bought new clothes. He also couldn't send pocket money when Seok-Ryu was abroad. Then her father still makes her worry about money. Her father feels unworthy of being a father. But her father should not appreciate her with money, but with love. She is also unemployed, doesn't she have the right to be his daughter? Her father said that Seok-Ryu will always be his daughter. And so will her father always be a father to Seok-Ryu. Seok-Ryu looks for CCTV around her father's shop. When she finds it, she asks the shop owner to see the CCTV footage. It turns out that Seung-Hyo also saw the CCTV footage before. Seung-Hyo meets the two men. He claims to be the son of the shop owner and will compensate them. But before that, he wants to see the broken watch. When they show him the watch, Seung-Hyo knows the brand of the watch. It is one of the most expensive watches in the world and he has the same watch. It is a newly launched model, but the serial number is different from the one he has. Why is the blue color of the watch face dull? The stainless steel should have been polished with a brush. And it was just a cheap imitation watch. Then Seung-Hyo showed the CCTV footage through the projector. It turned out that they were preparing an object to put in the soup. They called the shop owner and intentionally spilled the soup on the watch. But they still didn't want to admit it because it wasn't evidence. Seung-Hyo showed the time on the CCTV footage and the broken watch stopped before the incident when they entered the shop. Then Dan-ho came and introduced himself as a reporter, which made them a little worried. Then Seung-Hyo checked the wound on his hand and there was no wound at all. Dan-ho felt that the crime was heinous because it preyed on helpless people who had small businesses. Seung-Hyo called the restaurant owner and made sure their faces were recorded on camera. And when they went out and ran away, Seung-Hyo and Dan-ho chased them. And Seung-Hyo's leg had not fully recovered, which made it difficult for him to run. One of the perpetrators that Dan-ho was chasing hit a pipe and made him faint. And when the other perpetrator was out of Seung-Hyo's reach, Seok-Ryu suddenly hit him with her bag. The perpetrator pushed until Seok-Ryu fell and Seung-Hyo kicked the perpetrator. He saw Seok-Ryu's nose bleeding, then he took off his tie and stopped the blood using the tie. At that time, Dong-jin was also there and vented his anger by kicking the man. Mr. Bae got a call that the perpetrator had been arrested. And when Mr. Bae wanted to go to the police station, his wife hit him. He deserved to be hit because he didn't know the specialness of tteokbokki. They raised their child with that special food. Did his wife, Seok-Ryu and Dong-jin, mean nothing to him? Mr. Bae feels that they are too good for him. He doesn't want to expect much, just wants to take care of the family and make everyone happy. And his wife encourages her husband. She wants to accompany her husband to the police station, wherever they will go together. Be it heaven or hell, they will go together. That's because they are family.
너 사랑해?
Seok-Ryu thanks Seung-Hyo and will clean his tie at the dry cleaners. But Seung-Hyo doesn't care about his tie. Seok-Ryu feels like thinking about herself when she finds her dream. She doesn't know what happened to her father and feels that Seung-Hyo did his best. Seung-Hyo said that his father is not a stranger. Then Seok-Ryu asks how about her? Is she a stranger to Seung-Hyo? Seung-Hyo has been distancing himself from her lately. She is anxious when Seung-Hyo acts like that, becomes distant and not like before. Seung-Hyo feels that it can't be like that forever. Now they are adults and have their own lives. Don't act childishly like knocking on his window. So, respect each other's privacy. Seok-Ryu has trouble sleeping and thinks about Seung-Hyo. And when Seung-Hyo sees Seok-Hyo's bedroom window, Seung-Hyo thinks if he can squeeze his feelings like a piece of leather, can he feel more comfortable around her? Seok-Ryu waits for Seung-Hyo in front of his office. She wants to return the favor because Seung-Hyo has helped her father. She gives him her first dish in cooking class. Back when Seung-Hyo was little, he didn't want Korean food. Then Seok-Ryu gives him food that is similar in color to the rainbow. And Seung-Hyo likes it. Seok-Ryu remembers that it was the first dish that Seung-Hyo liked. She is sure she knows more about Seung-Hyo than his parents. But Seung-Hyo feels that her memories are meaningless, all of that is in the past. Does Seok-Ryu think he is easy? They are not 5-year-olds, why she always follow him? So don't bother him, get out of his life from now on. But Seok-Ryu doesn't want to, she will bother Seung-Hyo. She will continue to interfere in his life. Seung-Hyo asks her not to make him crazy. Seok-Ryu has always been like that, before and now. Seung-Hyo feels like he will go crazy because of it. Seok-Ryu is speechless. She knows all of Seung-Hyo's first experiences. The first time he drank banana milk. The first time he swam. The first time he was taller than her. But she just doesn't know who his first love is.
몰랐던 건
Then Seok-Ryu runs and chases him. She throws her shoes at Seung-Hyo and asks what he meant by that. After Seok-Ryu threw the shoe and asked what Seung-Hyo meant. Actually, at that time Seung-Hyo wanted to explain, but suddenly Seok-Ryu's ex-fiancé came. They were shocked to see Haein-Jung there. Likewise, with Seung-Hyo, who didn't like to see him. When Haein-Jung wanted to introduce himself, he didn't want to because they weren't friends. And when Seung-Hyo pulled Seok-Ryu's hand, Haein-Jung pulled her along. Suddenly Seok-Ryu's father and mother came angrily because they saw Haein-Jung. How impudent Haein-Jung came there. Then her mother asked Haein-Jung to come to her house. Because in a relationship there must be ethics and marriage is cancelled without parental consent. Is marriage just a game? At home, her mother gives Haein-Jung food and her father doesn't like it. He left because he couldn't stand being in the same room as that bastard. Seung-Hyo is seen pacing back and forth in front of Seok-Ryu's house. And Moim comes and wonders why Seung-Hyo didn't come in. Seung-Hyo says Seok-Ryu's ex-fiancé came and that makes Moim angry. Seung-Hyo asks Moim to calm down because he wants to kill Haein-Jung more. Then Mrs. Misak sits them both down. She will say what's on her mind. When her mother asks about the truth, whether Seok-Ryu is having an affair, strangely Haein-Jung is curious whether it's true. Then Haein-Jung says that he is the one responsible for the cancellation of their engagement. Mrs. Misak already suspected that her daughter could not possibly be having an affair. Then she took a piece of wood and intended to beat up Haein-Jung. How could he break her daughter's heart? But Seok-Ryu stopped her and asked Haein-Jung to leave because her mother could kill him. Seung-Hyo and Moim drinking in front of a convenience store. Moim asked Seung-Hyo to make a scene because previously he wanted to kill Haein-Jung. But Seung-Hyo felt he had no right because he was nobody to Seok-Ryu. According to Moim, he was the son of Seok-Ryu's mother's friend and had been friends since childhood. Friends are amazing things. One of the definitions is carrying their sadness. Moim felt frustrated seeing Seung-Hyo wasting time. And Seung-Hyo realized whether Moim knew his feelings. And Moim said honestly that she had peeked at the time capsule. Moim felt that only Seung-Hyo suffered because he buried his feelings. And Seung-Hyo asked Moim not to tell Seok-Ryu. Of course, Moim would support him and invite Seung-Hyo to save himself from unrequited love. Seok-Ryu asked why Haein-Jung came there. He answered that he wanted to breathe, eat and sleep again. Without Seok-Ryu, he couldn't survive and he asked Seok-Ryu to come back because he still loved Seok-Ryu. But Seok-Ryu thought everything was over. His feelings weren't love, it was just bad habits that has to be overcome. Seok-Ryu ran away from home and was in Moim's room. Moim knew there was Haein-Jung at home because Seung-Hyo told her. It turned out that when Moim asked if Seok-Ryu still loved her, she answered half right and wrong. Seok-Ryu likes spending time together, but she knows that some relationships are better to end. She tries to forget it and now Seok-Ryu feels much calmer. Hearing that Moim feels relieved because her feelings for her ex have faded a little. At that time, Seung-Hyo and Seok-Ryu looked at each other's cell phones and it seemed like they were waiting for each other's call. In the morning Seok-Ryu's father and mother enjoyed breakfast together. But Seok-Ryu's mother felt that she shouldn't have hit Haein-Jung. She didn't mind if they reconciled because Seok-Ryu's life would return to normal and she would return to US with her. Of course, her father was angry and refused Seok-Ryu return to the US. He had hurt Seok-Ryu and her father hated him. Suddenly her mother came into the room and asked Seok-Ryu to wear appropriate clothes. She felt that Seok-Ryu was always wandering around and wearing worn-out clothes and sandals. She also asked Seok-Ryu to wear makeup because she looked pale. Seok-Ryu felt strange with her mother's attitude.
실습을 이러고 하냐고.
And when she left the house, Haein-Jung was already there waiting for her. It turns out that her mother has an ulterior motive by asking her to dress up. Seok-Ryu doesn't like seeing Haein-Jung, and at that time Seung-Hyo comes and asks Seok-Ryu to ride on his bike. He will take her to cooking class.
웬 자전거냐?
Seung-Hyo feels that Seok-Ryu's clothes and blushing cheeks are not suitable for taking cooking class. Seok-Ryu explains that her mother told her to. Hearing that Seung-Hyo is disappointed and doesn't want to eat the side dishes anymore. Then Seung-Hyo says that Seok-Ryu looks ugly and Seok-Ryu pinches him because he always jokes. And when the bike wobbles, Seok-Ryu holds Seung-Hyo tightly. Then Seung-Hyo asks why Haein-Jung came. Don't tell him, he wants to go back with Seok-Ryu. Seung-Hyo thinks Seok-Ryu is happy to meet him again after so long. They're not only dating, but also engaged. Why is Seok-Ryu tempted? Does she have no self-respect? Then Seok-Ryu asked him to stop and suddenly Seung-Hyo stopped his bike. Tae-hui met Seung-Hyo at his office. She felt that Seung-Hyo seemed to be thinking about something else. Tae-hui also felt that there was no romance if it burned too quickly. In her 20s, she expected everything to burn quickly. But now, she wants to focus on something warm and smooth, slow and long. And that's thanks to Seung-Hyo, but she won't ask Seung-Hyo to take responsibility, so don't be afraid. So, let's follow her heart and Seung-Hyo follows his. Seok-Ryu will also follow her heart. Seung-Hyo was shocked because Tae-hui suddenly brought up Seok-Ryu and went off topic. And Tae-hui felt that his ex-boyfriend immediately changed like a teenager when Seok-Ryu's name was mentioned. When Moim came out of the store, she saw a car accident. When she asked someone to call emergency, she saw Dan-ho and his daughter. She broke the car window using a hammer and took the unconscious man out of the car. Then Moim gives CPR and Yeon-do sees it. And finally, the man can be saved thanks to Moim. Haein-Jung calls Seok-Ryu, but she ignores him. Then Haein-Jung pretends to be sick so that Seok-Ryu approaches him. He apologizes because Seok-Ryu doesn't want to visit. Haein-Jung feels that he has messed up, but Seok-Ryu doesn't want to deal with him anymore. Then Haein-Jung invites her to eat for the last time. Dan-ho and his daughter wait for Moim when come home from work. It turns out that Yeon-do attentively puts ointment on Moim's wound. Yeon-do feels that Moim is very cool today. Even though there is no web coming out of her hand, she is cooler than Spider-Man. Moim is very happy to hear that and they invite her to go home together. Because Yeon-do has a cold, so the car's air conditioner is not turned on. Then Dan-ho takes off his jacket because it is hot. Dan-ho is curious if Moim is never afraid on duty. Moim never feels afraid, she is only afraid if she can't save the victim. Dan-ho feels that Moim is very brave and he admires her. He realized that he didn't have to look far for heroes because they were near them. Then Moim remembered seeing a real hero. When the road was jammed, someone got out of his car and directed the traffic to make way. He was like a superhero and Moim felt like she had found her dream man. She called him a mud man because at that time he was wearing a shirt that said, "I love you, mud." Hearing that, Dan-ho was shocked and broke suddenly. Then Moim saw that the shirt that Dan-ho was wearing was the same as the one worn by the mud man. Dan-ho explained that he was given the shirt by a community. And when she saw Dan-ho, Moim realized that the mud man was similar in height to Dan-ho. Moim and Dan-ho both acted awkward, and Dan-ho gave various ointments to treat Moim's wounds. Dan-ho asked Moim not to get hurt again. Moim was still in shock, because she just found out that reporter was a madman. And she felt her heart beating like a drum. Seung-Hyo felt worried, because Seok-Ryu was walking at night. Because the world is scary, but Seok-Ryu doesn't care. Seok-Ryu walks alone, but it was like someone was following her and she ran. But the person who chased her turned out to be Seung-Hyo. Because Seok-Ryu suddenly ran, so Seung-Hyo just chased her. Seung-Hyo felt that it was their problem, because their hearts couldn't be expressed, so they went around and ended up fighting. Then Seung-Hyo was going to answer when that night Seok-Ryu asked what he meant. But Seok-Ryu didn't want to, because at that time her mind was filled with various thoughts. She couldn't think clearly, so later. Not because of Haein-Jung, but many other things. And Seung-Hyo wanted to postpone answering it until her mind was not filled with thoughts. But Seung-Hyo asked if she would continue to meet Haein-Jung. Seok-Ryu replied that there was no such plan. Then Seung-Hyo invited her to go home. Seung-Hyo will be behind Seok-Ryu, so there is no need to look back and don't be afraid. Seung-Hyo's mother has a birthday today, but her husband is busy and immediately went to the hospital. Meanwhile Seung-Hyo left for work early. Then she asked in her chat group if her friends had plans tonight.
오늘 저녁에 뭐해?
Seung-Hyo and Tae-hui ate together and they saw Seok-Ryu eating with Haein-Jung. Seung-Hyo looked disappointed to see them and invited Tae-hui to sit at the table that had been ordered. It turned out that they ordered a table near Seok-Ryu's table. Haein-Jung saw the food that Seok-Ryu brought. It was japchae, the food that Seok-Ryu cooked at the place where she took the cooking class. Then Haein-Jung asked permission to taste the food that Seok-Ryu cooked. And at that time Seung-Hyo looked annoyed and Tae-hui knew it. Seung-Hyo sliced the steak hard until it was making a sound. Then Tae-hui talks about their coworkers, who are curious about their relationship. Tae-hui explains that Seung-Hyo is her ex-boyfriend, but they still like each other. Seung-Hyo asks Tae-hui not to lie, because he hates liars the most in this world. Not keeping promises is also a lie. Secretly meeting someone who she said she wouldn't meet. Hearing that, Seok-Ryu chokes, because she feels alluded to.
화장실에 좀.
When Seok-Ryu comes out of the toilet, she meets Seung-Hyo. He is surprised because previously Seok-Ryu wouldn't meet him. But Seok-Ryu is also surprised because Seung-Hyo also met Tae-hui. Then Tae-hui comes and gives wine to Seok-Ryu. Seok-Ryu refuses it because she doesn't drink wine. Then Tae-hui asks her to give it to her boyfriend. But Seok-Ryu says he's not her boyfriend. And Tae-hui apologizes for thinking that he's Seok-Ryu's boyfriend.
사과는 받아줄게.
Haein-Jung takes Seok-Ryu home by car. He plans to treat Seok-Ryu again another time. But Seok-Ryu thought there was no next time, just this once. And Haein-Jung still tried to force her, but Seok-Ryu asked him to stop.
여기 좀 내려줄래?
Seung-Hyo's mother got a message in the chat group. It turned out that they asked her to put the crab in the refrigerator because they were busy. She was annoyed because her friends didn't remember her birthday. And when she put the package in, suddenly her friends gave her a surprise and brought a birthday cake. Seung-Hyo's mother was touched and cried with the surprise party. She was also happy when Seung-Hyo sent a message containing birthday greetings. While her husband was busy looking for his wife's favorite flowers.
고맙다, 아들.
Seung-Hyo was at the swimming pool and his teacher came to congratulate him for winning the design contest. She asked Seung-Hyo to tell Seok-Ryu. Because she had asked the results of the contest several times, whether Seung-Hyo had won the competition. She would have been happy if she knew Seung-Hyo had won the design contest. Then when Seung-Hyo was alone, he remembered her friend's words to save himself alone and brave with his feelings. Then he called Seok-Ryu and asked where she was.
가게 내 연습 중이야.
And when Seung-Hyo's father brought flowers, he saw his wife with a man in front of his house. He felt disappointed seeing the two of them. Seung-Hyo thought there were many opportunities to express his feelings. That is when they graduated from high school and became adults. Then on the ice cream day, tasted sweet and cherry blossoms, bloomed in spring, when they were 20 years old. That night at the food stall, when she said she would go to the US.
대박이지 않냐?
Then tonight, Seung-Hyo will not delay it anymore. He lied to himself and it was because he was afraid. So, this time he will say it. When he said Seok-Ryu made him crazy, what he meant was that he liked her.
널 좋아해.
After Seung-Hyo expressed his feelings to Seok-Ryu. Suddenly Seok-Ryu became nervous. She held the pot that was just boiling. Of course, her hand was blistered because of the heat. Seung-Hyo immediately held her hand and poured water on it. Seok-Ryu felt Seung-Hyo's warm hand. And Seung-Hyo was worried that her hand would leave a mark. Seok-Ryu could already guess that when she decided to cook, she would get hurt taking care of water, fire and oil. But still Seung-Hyo always worried about her, because from the past until now Seok-Ryu always didn't take care of her attitude, starting from her attitude to her mother and also to many other people. So, Seung-Hyo hoped that there would be good people around her. He also asked Seok-Ryu to pay attention to his feelings and he would give her time to answer. Seung-Hyo gave a gift to his mother which he put on her dressing table. The gift was a very beautiful necklace, and his mother really liked it. While her husband returned to the hospital. His fellow doctors wondered why he returned, because previously he seemed to have an important event. He also answered that he was wrong, he thought it was all over but it seems not. Seok-Ryu thought Seung-Hyo might not know, but she was the one who liked him first. The incident happened when she was little and she slowly forgot about it. Strangely the feeling is still very clear.
최승효잖아.
While Seung-Hyo still can't believe his actions. He is confused whether he was too hasty and made her confused. But he feels like he has done his best, he can't hesitate forever. He feels like he's lost his mind because of Seok-Ryu. How will he face Seok-Ryu tomorrow? In the room, Seok-Ryu was practicing slicing using a knife, while Seung-Hyo banged his head because he was still thinking about Seok-Ryu. They both couldn't sleep and checked each other's bedroom windows. In the morning, his mother saw that Seung-Hyo looked tired. And Seung-Hyo reasoned that he was just a little busy. He was happy when he saw the necklace that his mother was wearing. His mother was very happy and she thanked her son. His mother would remember it forever and Seung-Hyo promised to buy a better one next time. When his father came home, Seung-Hyo said that his mother had a birthday yesterday, but his father only apologized for being too busy so he forgot. Seok-Ryu tried to cover her eye bags and at that time she saw Seung-Hyo's tie. She wondered why he was wiping her nosebleed with a tie. She also planned to return his tie. Her mother was curious when she saw Seok-Ryu not wearing a shirt. And her mother also smelled a very fragrant perfume. Seok-Ryu and Seung-Hyo met in front of the house. They looked awkward. When discussing about sleeping last night, they both explained that they slept soundly last night, even though they couldn't sleep. Then Seok-Ryu returned Seung-Hyo's clean tie. But Seung-Hyo actually hoped that the tie wasn't clean so that it could be buried with it. Seok-Ryu felt strange because Seung-Hyo suddenly discussed a funeral. Seok-Ryu was sure that their ages would reach 100 years. Hearing that, Seung-Hyo teased Seok-Ryu that they would live together for 100 years. Seok-Ryu became even more nervous. Then she asked permission to give an answer later. Seung-Hyo asked her to think about it carefully. Then they looked for food or drinks that had an expiration date. The time to consider the answer was the same as the expiration date of the food or drink. Seok-Ryu looked for the one that had long expiration date, but Seung-Hyo looks for one with a short expiration date. And when she saw Seung-Hyo, Seok-Ryu's heart beat fast. She then left Seung-Hyo. Of course, Seung-Hyo was confused because Seok-Ryu suddenly disappeared.
죄송합니다.
Dan-ho planned to write an article based on a real experience. He asked his boss's permission to write the article. It turned out he would be an emergency response officer for one day. Moim was a bit surprised, but Dan-ho promised not to bother her. Moim also doubted that he would be able to lift heavy weights. Then Dan-ho did push-ups in front of Moim. He wanted to explain the misunderstanding so that Moim would be sure of his stamina. And when she saw Dan-ho's muscles, Moim felt awkward and asked him to stop.
책임지고 도와드릴 겁니다.
Haein-Jung invited Mrs. Misak to meet. Mrs. Misak was disappointed because they cancelled the engagement. Haein-Jung apologized for not being able to give a reason. Hearing that Mrs. Misak feels that she can't fix their relationship anymore. Haein-Jung explains that he never hated Seok-Ryu and still loves her. And when Mr. Bae passed by, he saw his wife, who was in a cafe with Haein-Jung. Seung-Hyo sent a photo to Seok-Ryu of milk with an expiration date only 11 days. Of course, Seok-Ryu didn't accept it because he chose a short expiration date. Friends in the cooking class were shocked to hear Seok-Ryu's screams.
잘 있어라.
Mr. Bae was waiting for his wife at home. He waited for his wife's answer, who had just met Haein-Jung. Why did his wife treat him as Seok-Ryu's father? His wife explained that he still loves Seok-Ryu and wants to return to the US together. Hearing that, Mr. Bae became very angry. Why is his wife so obsessed with Seok-Ryu going to the US? Does she want to sell her daughter? Mrs. Misak explained that she didn't want Seok-Ryu to fail and live like her. She didn't want Seok-Ryu to be poor and miserable.
아무것도 모르면서.
Dongjin talked to his mother. He wanted to be an influencer and needed a lot of followers. That's why he needed money to buy followers. Then after that he would look for sponsors to sell products on a platform. Seok-Ryu came and immediately hit her younger brother. She said, even parasites still have a conscience. Why did he depend on his parents all his life? Doesn't he feel sorry for his mother? Their mother felt a headache hearing them fight. Seok-Ryu felt that her mother always spoiled him, so he acted like that. Her mother was like that because there was a hole in Dongjin's heart. But Seok-Ryu felt that Dongjin's heart had closed and he was healthy. Her mother still defended him because her son was sick. And Seok-Ryu felt that being sick was that important. Seung-Hyo sent a message to Seok-Ryu that said, 10 more days, enjoy today. Seok-Ryu saw it with excitement because he also sent an emoji. And at that time, she met Haein-Jung. He gave jasmine tea to Seok-Ryu because Seok-Ryu used to really like it. And Seung-Hyo told Tae-Hui that he had confessed his feelings to Seok-Ryu. Tae-Hui was curious about her reaction, but she didn't answer. So that's how it ended. That's why men and women can't be friends. But the reason Seung-Hyo can't be friends with Seok-Ryu is not because she's a woman. It's because she's Bae Seok-Ryu. Tae-hui was angry, but she agreed, because she didn't feel like Seung-Hyo betrayed her. Seung-Hyo was a good man when they were dating, while Tae-hui was very emotional. That might be why she can't forget Seung-Hyo. But Seung-Hyo might also be dumped by Seok-Ryu. Because the man at the restaurant looked great, he was sexy, mature and established. Is Seung-Hyo feels threatened? She then asked Seung-Hyo to contact friends if the relationship doesn't go well. Seung-Hyo is curious because Tae-hui always thinks negatively. While on the way, Mrs. Misak sees Seok-Ryu coming out of a place. She asks what place it is, and Seok-Ryu's teacher explains that it is a culinary school that holds cooking classes. Seok-Ryu's mother looks shocked and immediately meets her husband. Seung-Hyo is asked to come home by Dongjin because he has something to ask. Seok-Ryu feels unbelievable with her brother who also asks him. Then her mother comes home and immediately takes out the contents of Seok-Ryu's bag. Her mother finds a book about culinary and asks why Seok-Ryu brought the book. Seok-Ryu answered, because she wanted to cook. Her mother was even more shocked when Seung-Hyo found out. Seok-Ryu explained that Seung-Hyo was not wrong because it was her business and her dream. She intended to tell them after getting her certification. She had worked hard to find her dream. Her father then asked about her studies and experiences. Her father couldn't believe it and thought that Seok-Ryu was a smart idiot. Does she think she can handle that kind of job with that mentality? Seok-Ryu could only stare at her father and then Dongjin came. She thought her parents were too hard on her. Why are the standards different between Dongjin and her? Do they know why Seok-Ryu works hard? It's because they suffer a lot because of Dongjin. She doesn't want to add to their burden. But they still give her brother freedom and don't give her any room to make mistakes. Why can't she do what she wants? Her father gave her the freedom to do anything, as long as it wasn't cooking. He wasn't allowed to because his father had tried. Hearing that, Seok-Ryu was disappointed and left the house. Seung-Hyo chased after her and asked her to leave. Seung-Hyo felt that knowing everything in detail about their past was not beneficial for him. At that time the leaves were falling and Seok-Ryu tried to catch them. It seemed like she was feeling better. But Seok-Ryu was a little embarrassed. How could Seung-Hyo see all the embarrassing things in her life? She thought that venting would make her feel relieved, but it turned out to be worse. Seung-Hyo felt that parents were not always right, they also did wrong to their children. When arguing with them, we feel guilty for no reason. Seok-Ryu was surprised how Seung-Hyo could know, had he ever fought with his parents? She thought Seung-Hyo's parents were careful in speaking and he also didn't have a stupid younger sibling. Seok-Ryu was confused, where would she practice cooking now? Then Seung-Hyo offers to practice in his office kitchen. She can practice after everyone leaves. Seung-Hyo also reminds Seok-Ryu that there are only 9 days left because it's already midnight. Dan-ho prepares to become an emergency response. Moim explains about the basic equipment used. Before finishing explaining, suddenly there is an emergency call and they rush off. There is a man who is attacked by beasts and Dan-ho is asked to come over to help him. Seung-Hyo calls Seok-Ryu and offers her cooking practice at his office. But it turns out that Seok-Ryu comes with Haein-Jung. Of course, Seung-Hyo wonders why Seok-Ryu came with him. It turns out that Haein-Jung is there to consult about architecture. Haein-Jung plans to build a vacation home for his parents. While he was consulting, suddenly Myung-woo got a call and had to go back home. So, he asked Haein-Jung to finish the consultation with Seung-Hyo. And Seung-Hyo immediately refused to work on it. He also asked him not to appear in front of Seok-Ryu because their relationship is over. But Haein-Jung feels that their relationship is too strong to be broken that easily. And Seung-Hyo will see what their relationship is like. But Seung-Hyo doesn't want to know about their past. Because he believes Seok-Ryu's words. They sit side by side watching Seok-Ryu, who was cooking. Suddenly they smelled a delicious and savory smell, like caramel. It turned out that Seung-Hyo brought popcorn that he kept in his bag. When Seok-Ryu wanted to eat, Haein-Jung didn't allow it because the food was unhealthy. But Seok-Ryu still ate it and liked it. Seung-Hyo was happy because Seok-Ryu liked it and Haein-Jung just kept quiet. Finally, Dan-ho finished carrying out his duties as an emergency response officer. Moim felt like Dan-ho was going to faint from exhaustion. His face was also bruised from a bee sting. Then Moim's boss invited him to eat together. They enjoyed eating meat and Dan-ho would make an article that was in accordance with the field. That they lacked time to eat and also to the bathroom. And Dan-ho also asked about the difficulties they faced while on duty. It turned out that most of them had difficulty dating because they were too busy. Most of them dated their office friends. But Moim never did that. Then one of her colleagues said that Moim likes the man she calls madman. Hearing that, Moim and Dan-ho became embarrassed. Finally, Seok-Ryu's cooking was cooked and she served it to them both. When they tasted it, Seok-Ryu suddenly had pain in her stomach. Seung-Hyo held her hand and took her to the hospital. But Seok-Ryu let go of Seung-Hyo's hand and asked Haein-Jung to hold her. Haein-Jung took her to the hospital and Seung-Hyo could only look at them. It turns out that 3 years ago, she had surgery in the US. And had surgery because she had stage 2 stomach cancer. 70% of her stomach was removed and she underwent chemotherapy. When Seok-Ryu found out he had stomach cancer, she couldn't believe it. She felt like she hadn't slept enough, she hadn't eaten regularly, she was also too stressed. When she looked out the window, the sky was very bright and at that time she was 30 years old. Seok-Ryu was shocked when she found out that the hospital she went to was the hospital where Seung-Hyo's father worked. She didn't realize it because at that time she was panicking. Then the doctor explained the results of her test. And when she left the hospital, Haein-Jung was waiting for her. He was very worried about Seok-Ryu, then Seung-Hyo also came. He was also very worried and curious about Seok-Ryu's illness. But Seok-Ryu didn't tell him the truth, she just said she was fine. They both invited Seok-Ryu to go home together and Seok-Ryu didn't care who she would go home with. But then she decided to go home with Seung-Hyo because their houses were in the same direction. Back when she was in the US, Seok-Ryu told Haein-Jung that she had stomach cancer. She was very scared and Haein-Jung would help her so she could recover. Haein-Jung will also apply for leave with Seok-Ryu, so he can accompany Seok-Ryu.
내가 네 옆에 있을 거야.
When Seok-Ryu wanted to tell her mother by phone. She didn't tell her, she only told her that she couldn't make calls for a while. She gave the reason that she was starting a very important new project. Her mother felt that her work was more important, so she wouldn't bother her. Her mother only reminded her not to be late for meals and to take care of her health. Seok-Ryu could only hold back her tears and hung up the phone. She intended to tell her family when she recovered. When they arrived, Seung-Hyo opened the car door for Seok-Ryu. She felt strange because Seung-Hyo had never done that before. This princess-like treatment felt strange, but Seung-Hyo did that because Haein-Jung was like that to Seok-Ryu. Seung-Hyo played baseball because he was disappointed with Seok-Ryu's attitude. Then Moim came and she joined in. She was curious about Seung-Hyo's different attitude. Was it because of Seok-Ryu? Seung-Hyo explains that Seok-Ryu went to the hospital with Haein-Jung and not with him. Moim is curious why Seok-Ryu chose Haein-Jung at that time. Should Moim interfere? But Seung-Hyo asked her to forget it even though his feelings were chaotic because he felt jealous. Actually, Seung-Hyo wanted to know why Seok-Ryu and Haein-Jung's relationship ended, but he couldn't ask because he felt their relationship was over. There was a gap between Seok-Ryu and himself, and there was also Haein-Jung in it. There was a part of Seok-Ryu that he didn't know. Moim understood what Seung-Hyo felt and asked him to stay enthusiastic and not give up. No one cares about Seok-Ryu, and her mother won't forbid her from taking cooking classes. It's something they do to survive, and it's a great hobby. Her mother also won't force her to go to the US again, but to find a job here. Seok-Ryu can relax for a while, but she has a lot of experience, so think about the future. But Seok-Ryu feels that her future is cooking. She's not lost and her path is right. She runs here and there, but finally finds her way. Her mother feels that her advice is not being listened to anymore.
왜 이렇게 늦게 나와?
Seung-Hyo is already waiting for Seok-Ryu in front of the house. He heard Seok-Ryu arguing with her mother again. Then Seung-Hyo invites her to eat. Seung-Hyo feels Seok-Ryu is messy like porridge, so he chooses that breakfast. And when Seok-Ryu tastes it, she likes it because it tastes very delicious. Seung-Hyo knows that and he will not choose a place carelessly. Seok-Ryu eats it greedily until it is finished. But suddenly her stomach has a problem and she will go to the bathroom. In the toilet, she feels a stomachache because she eats too fast. And she experiences dumping syndrome again. Seung-Hyo waits for Seok-Ryu and gives her the bag. He also gives various medicines for Seok-Ryu. Drink according to the symptoms experienced by Seok-Ryu.
많이 드셨네, 바보가.
After Seok-Ryu finishes the cooking class, Haein-Jung is already waiting for her. Haein-Jung feels Seok-Ryu's smile is very sweet, like before. Seok-Ryu is smart, positive and full of energy. Then Haein-Jung gives a brochure about a cooking school in the US. And inside there is also Seok-Ryu's engagement ring that he left behind. He asks Seok-Ryu to start over again. And at that time Seok-Ryu wears the ring. Seok-Ryu gives Seung-Hyo ice cream and they chat together. Suddenly Seok-Ryu says that Haein-Jung proposed her. Hearing that, Seung-Hyo feels annoyed with Haein-Jung. Seok-Ryu thinks that when he proposed to her the second time, maybe it wasn't too late. He keeps bringing her to the happy times. Seok-Ryu also remembers all the forgotten memories. Even though Seung-Hyo is here now and even though Seung-Hyo confessed his feelings. That's why Seok-Ryu went with him and not with Seung-Hyo. Seok-Ryu thinks that a person is most fragile and honest when they are sick. Unconsciously, she wants to lean on Haein-Jung. For her, Seung-Hyo just childhood friend and successful son of her mother's friend. Seung-Hyo feels Seok-Ryu is very cruel. How could she make Seung-Hyo speechless? It doesn't matter if he's not the one, but don't teach him about his feelings. No matter how much he likes Seok-Ryu, she has no right to do that. There is a problem with the project that Seung-Hyo and the team are working on. They have to stop the construction because the district office has complained. Although they had previously received approval, there are neighbors who protested. That means they have to start from the beginning again. While they were looking for proof of approval, one of the staff lost the proof. He had looked for it in various places, but couldn't find it. Myung-woo was very angry because of that, and Seung-Hyo calmed him down. And Seung-Hyo asked the staff to find the answer, the mistake he made.
미치겠다, 진짜.
Mrs. Misak sees Seung-Hyo and invites him to eat at her house. Seung-Hyo apologizes for not telling her about Seok-Ryu. Because Seok-Ryu is really serious, Seung-Hyo asks her to give Seok-Ryu some leeway. Mrs. Misak didn't answer it. She was going to leave because there was a community meeting. She asked Seung-Hyo to finish his food. While he was eating, suddenly Seok-Ryu came. He didn't know that Seok-Ryu was at home. When Seok-Ryu saw milk in the refrigerator, she asked Seung-Hyo to throw away the milk that he saved. She would have answered it earlier, that for her, Seung-Hyo was just a friend. She apologized and couldn't reconsider. Seok-Ryu thought they would be awkward for a few days, but it would get better. Their friendship wouldn't be destroyed that easily because of something like that. But Seung-Hyo thought there was no more friendship. It turned out that when Seok-Ryu saw Haein-Jung, it was like he was kissing another woman. They weren't kissing, but Haein-Jung was putting on her contact lenses. Haein-Jung was embarrassed because Seok-Ryu appeared like that in front of his friends. As his fiancé, Seok-Ryu should have understood his perspective. But as his sick fiancé, Haein-Jung just wanted to party. He didn't care about Seok-Ryu's feelings. But Haein-Jung feels that he has sacrificed a lot when Seok-Ryu is sick. He took care of her and his life was put on hold because he couldn't spend time with his friends. But suddenly Seok-Ryu became depressed. Her treatment is over, but now Seok-Ryu is not herself. She is not Seok-Ryu that Haein-Jung knew. Seok-Ryu feels like she has just witnessed their downfall. And when Haein-Jung gave her another ring, Seok-Ryu felt that the ring was too big. They could have fixed the ring, but not their relationship. Haein-Jung apologized for what happened in the past. But Seok-Ryu felt that he didn't need to apologize. Because it was too heavy for her, she was worried that the incident would happen again. She also hasn't fully recovered from always being close to death. Therefore, she doesn't need love anymore. The rest of her stomach can barely digest her dreams. The staff gave Seung-Hyo a resignation letter because he felt he hadn't found an answer. Then Myung-woo took the letter and burned it. It turned out that they had resolved their problems. Seung-Hyo thought the staff was an important member of the atelier. For them, he is more important than profit and loss. Make sure to learn from the mistake, face the challenge and find the right answer. They think Seung-Hyo is very cool. But Nayeon sees eye bags and Seung-Hyo looks pale. But Seung-Hyo feels fine until when he stands up, he almost falls. While sleeping at home, Seung-Hyo dreams of his mother living with a man. Then Seok-Ryu comes and calms him down. She's always there when Seung-Hyo needs someone. Then Seung-Hyo wakes up and sees his mother there. When he wakes up again, he sees Seok-Ryu beside him. Finally, Seung-Hyo wakes up and sees Seok-Ryu sleeping there. Seung-Hyo thinks Seok-Ryu is always there when he is sick. Then Seok-Ryu wakes up and asks if Seung-Hyo is getting better. Seung-Hyo felt unhappy, because Seok-Ryu entered his room. It turned out that Myung-woo told him that Seung-Hyo almost fainted. Then he went to Seung-Hyo's house, but no one opened the door. That's why she was in Seung-Hyo's room. She was angry because Seung-Hyo didn't contact her when he was sick. Seung-Hyo emphasized that he wouldn't contact her again. No matter what the reason, he wouldn't contact her again. But even if he broke up, at least eat first. Seok-Ryu looked for food in the refrigerator, but the refrigerator was empty. And when Seung-Hyo took Seok-Ryu's bag, he saw a document from the hospital. He was shocked when he read the diagnosis of Seok-Ryu's illness. Then Seok-Ryu returned to the room and saw Seung-Hyo reading her diagnosis. Seung-Hyo looked angry and asked what did it mean. That's why Seok-Ryu didn't want to tell Seung-Hyo that she used to be sick, but now she's fine. Seung-Hyo was very sad to know that why Seok-Ryu didn't tell him. Does he mean nothing as a friend? Seok-Ryu just doesn't want to burden him. When Seok-Ryu is about to leave, Seung-Hyo take her hand. He can't wait any longer. How could Seok-Ryu do that to him? How long is she going to delay this? How long is she going to hide it? How can she experience it without telling anyone? Because stomach cancer surgery is serious. And at that time Seok-Ryu's mother and Seung-Hyo's mother came and heard that. Mrs. Misak asked who had stomach cancer. Seok-Ryu could only cry and her mother hugged her. Honestly, Seok-Ryu wanted to tell Seung-Hyo first. If she did, would the cancer seem like no big deal? Could she forget and get back up? She was serious when she said she wanted to leave.
살고 싶었다.
After finding out that Seok-Ryu had stomach cancer, her mother wants to take her to the hospital. But Seok-Ryu was fine, so there was no need to go to the hospital. Because she had surgery 3 years ago in the US. Her mother didn't believe it. How could she not know? Seok-Ryu could only apologize and Seung-Hyo told her that he had just found out. Her younger brother and father were confused when they heard that Seok-Ryu had cancer. Her mother explained that Seok-Ryu had stomach cancer and had surgery without their knowledge. They were shocked and couldn't believe what happened. Her mother went to Seok-Ryu's room and found some medicine. She also saw the scar on Seok-Ryu's stomach. Seok-Ryu explained that she was no longer sick and it was just liver supplements, probiotics and vitamins. She had surgery and had also undergone chemotherapy as a preventive measure. And Haein-Jung stayed with her when she was sick. Then, Seok-Ryu didn't want to make him suffer anymore, so she cancelled the wedding. Her mother couldn't believe it. How could Seok-Ryu hide it from them? If a child is sick, parents will explore the moon or Mars for her. How cruel Seok-Ryu was not to tell her mother when she was sick. While crying, Seok-Ryu could only apologize to her mother and father. She couldn't tell her parents and wanted to tell them after getting better.
걱정 안 해도 돼.
Her younger brother felt very sad and cried alone. While her father cried alone outside the house while holding a cigarette. And her mother felt very sorry because previously she always forced Seok-Ryu to return to the US. She didn't care about her daughter who had difficulties while working in the US. Why did her daughter have cancer? Why did she have to be sick like that? She just works hard and never does anything wrong. His mother wonders if Seung-Hyo doesn't know, because 3 years ago, he went to the US for business. It turns out that when he was in the US, Seung-Hyo saw a short-haired Seok-Ryu with a man. Because of that he didn't meet Seok-Ryu. And now Seung-Hyo regrets it. He should have run to Seok-Ryu. He should have said that Seok-Ryu was thin and looked tired. Seok-Hyo should have asked, "Is she okay?" Seok-Ryu once sent a message when Seok-Hyo was working in the US, but he ignored it. After that, Seok-Ryu also kept contacting Seok-Hyo, but he still ignored it. He also didn't reply to Seok-Ryu's birthday greetings for him. She was sick, without anyone knowing and alone, for a long time. When Seok-Hyo was hurt, only Seok-Ryu dragged him out of his cave. However, she sent all those signals in the dark and all were missed by him. Seok-Hyo's mother called Moin's mother. She told her that Seok-Ryu had stomach cancer. And at that time Moin heard her mother's conversation on the phone. She was very shocked and went straight to Seok-Ryu's room. She asked why Seok-Ryu kept it a secret. Did she think Moin would feel sorry for her if she confessed? Seok-Ryu knows that she deserves to be scolded. Even though Moin is an emergency medical officer, she can't help her. Actually, there are many signs that Seok-Ryu only drinks non-alcoholic beer and doesn't eat spicy food. Moin should have known that, but she won't cry, she will only hug Seok-Ryu. Seok-Ryu has faced many things, both physically and mentally. Moin feels that Seok-Ryu's chest is very flat and she doesn't feel anything. She means Seok-Ryu is too thin and then Seok-Ryu asks Moin to treat her. While at the hospital, Seok-Hyo's father saw a patient named Bae Seok-Ryu, who had been operated on for stomach cancer. Then he called Seok-Hyo and asked him to meet. Even though Seok-Hyo is his son, his father couldn't give the patient information. His father likes Seok-Ryu and asks Seok-Hyo to take her to the hospital. His father promises to make sure she is healthy. Dan-ho sees and calls Moim, but she doesn't hear Dan-ho's call. When Dan-ho patting her shoulder, she instead dropped Dan-ho. And at that time Moim was crying with earphones in her ears. Then she took Dan-ho to his house. Who would have thought Dan-ho would feel the power of a black belt? When Moim wanted to look for a patch, Dan-ho held her hand and asked her to sit down. He was curious why Moim was crying. He said that this was a popular place to listen to other people's problems. But Moim felt that the security there was messy because she had heard Dan-ho and Seok-Hyo's conversation. Then she told him about her childhood friend who used to live in the US. That her friend had cancer surgery 3 years ago and she just found out. But she acted like her friend was fine. Because of her job, Moim saw many sick people. Many people were on the verge of death. But she never imagined that Seok-Ryu was one of them. Moim told her that she wouldn't cry, but Moim couldn't stop crying. Dan-ho told her that Moim could cry here secretly, then smile widely after that. He also asked Moim to always be with Seok-Ryu. Being with someone who came back from the brink of death is a miracle. That's what his daughter means to him. 2 years ago, his wife and daughter had an accident. His wife didn't survive, while his daughter underwent surgery in the hospital. Yeondu miraculously survived the accident and came back to him. So, he knows how precious every morning is, waking up, preparing breakfast and running to the daycare. Then Moim holds his face and says, "Why are you holding back your tears?" Seeing Dan-ho crying, Moim suddenly kisses him. And then Moim butts his head and leaves him. Seok-Ryu meets Seok-Hyo on the street. Seok-Ryu wonders why Seok-Hyo didn't contact her. Is Seok-Hyo avoiding her? Because of her cancer, Seok-Hyo is disturbed looking at her. He is confused whether to comfort or support Seok-Ryu. At home it is also like that. Her mother is crying, her father is worried and even Dongjin is pale with fear. It is very uncomfortable because they are careful around her. Seok-Ryu had expected this would happen, so she kept it a secret. But Seung-Hyo thinks, Seok-Ryu only thinks about herself. She is a coward and pathetic, weak and hypocritical. She hurts the people who love her. In her loneliest and most difficult times, she chooses to be alone. When things are difficult, we lean on those closest to us. But Seok-Ryu feels that if she is sick then they will be sick too. If she falls, they will fall like dominoes. But according to Seung-Hyo, if they fall and down together, then they will rise again. Seok-Ryu always does for Seung-Hyo. Seok-Ryu always helps him and accompanies him. Why doesn't Seok-Ryu give him the same opportunity? Why can't he do the same? Hearing all that makes Seok-Ryu run away and leave him.
거기 서라고!
And at that time Seung-Hyo met Haein-Jung. Haein-Jung should have done the same as Seung-Hyo before. He should have shouted, been angry, and also honest. Then Seung-Hyo asked if Seok-Ryu was in pain before. And Seok-Ryu bravely went through it. A year after her surgery, she was depressed. Haein-Jung didn't know and she was devastated alone.
혼자 무너지고 있었다는 걸.
Moim didn't go out of the house because she saw Dan-ho and Yeon-do. She felt like she couldn't greet Yeon-do because of her careless lips. It all happened because she was thinking a lot, so it was a bit chaotic. Yeon-do wondered why she was hiding. She then told her father that Moim hid after seeing them. Dan-ho just smiled and invited Yeon-do to run because they almost late. Her mother looked for Seok-Ryu and found her cell phone, which contained a message from the hospital that the biopsy results were complete. Then her mother called Seung-Hyo and said that Seok-Ryu had disappeared. Seung-Hyo immediately rushed to look for Seok-Ryu in various places, but couldn't find her. Then he went to the beach and saw Seok-Ryu sitting on the edge of the beach. Seung-Hyo called her and was angry because she left without telling the others. She also disappeared without bringing her cell phone. Seok-Ryu came to the beach because she was frustrated. She also needed to breathe. But Seung-Hyo felt suffocated until when Seok-Ryu will hide. It's about her emotional suffering, not her physical. Why didn't she tell him that Seok-Ryu was depressed? Why is Seok-Ryu so stupid? How much did she keep inside her tiny body? Seok-Ryu couldn't stand it anymore and decided to leave. But Seung-Hyo instead carried her and threw her into the beach. Seok-Ryu was angry because Seung-Hyo did something crazy. Seung-Hyo asked Seok-Ryu to scream like that. Everything that was bottled up let out all the bitterness inside her. So don't make up trying to carry it herself. Seok-Ryu felt that she was the one who was hurt. Why did Seung-Hyo yell at her? Seung-Hyo wasn't angry at Seok-Ryu, but at himself. Because he didn't realize Seok-Ryu was asking for help. Even though Seok-Ryu gave him a sign of difficulty, his eyes and ears were closed. He felt very sad, frustrated and useless. Hearing that Seok-Ryu hit Seung-Hyo for not replying to her messages. Why ignored her calls? Seok-Ryu can't tell anyone and feels scared to be alone. She is very worried that her parents will collapse if she tells. She thinks over and over again whether to tell Seung-Hyo. She feels that Seung-Hyo doesn't know her feelings. And Seung-Hyo can't say anything and can only watch Seok-Ryu cry. Seung-Hyo gives Seok-Ryu banana milk. Seok-Ryu is curious about how Seung-Hyo can find her. It turns out that it is the place where Seok-Ryu ran away when she was in high school. Seok-Ryu asks to forget it because she is not brave enough. But Seung-Hyo feels that Seok-Ryu is too kind. Because she is angry and feels that everything is unfair, but doesn't want her parents worry. Then Seung-Hyo asked her to contact his father because the biopsy results are out. Call now while Seung-Hyo is around. Don't worry about what will happen. Call and Seung-Hyo will stay by her side. Then Seok-Ryu contacts Seung-Hyo's father. And the results of Seok-Ryu's biopsy showed nothing, it was just an infection and she was clean. Hearing that, Seung-Hyo was very relieved and hugged Seok-Ryu. And Seok-Ryu was surprised because she was suddenly hugged by Seung-Hyo. Seung-Hyo asked permission to hug her for a while. Seok-Ryu told him that Moim also did the same thing. They showed friendship with hugs. But Seung-Hyo felt that they were no longer friends. When he arrived in front of the house, Seung-Hyo did not stop and pass Seok-Ryu's house. It turned out that her family was waiting at Seok-Ryu's father's shop. But the cake candles had not been lit and they were looking for a lighter. The candles had not been lit, but they had already arrived. And they failed to give a surprise party for Seok-Ryu. Seok-Ryu felt that it was very tacky and it turned out that it was Seung-Hyo's idea. Previously, Seung-Hyo called Seok-Ryu's mother to give her a surprise party. Although it was late, they did nothing when she came home. Before enjoying dinner together, Mrs. Misak gives a welcoming speech. They are one family. Family doesn't only share good times. Family also shares hard times, sadness and hurt together. So, from now on there are no more secrets. And they enjoy dinner happily. Haein-Jung sees Seok-Ryu and her family who are happy. Then he calls Seok-Ryu and he is happy because Seok-Ryu picks up his phone. Haein-Jung will return to the US and this call may be the last call. He loved Seok-Ryu very much in the past, but the way he loves her is wrong. He only focuses on making Seok-Ryu rise again. He doesn't think about falling down with Seok-Ryu. He just realized who Seok-Ryu needs and where is the place Seok-Ryu needs. Haein-Jung apologizes for not understanding her suffering and not being able to accept her as she is. But Seok-Ryu feels that sick she uses it as an excuse to exploit him. She is busy with her emotions until she doesn't realize how lonely Haein-Jung is. Haein-Jung asks Seok-Ryu not to regret their time together. Let's remember that Haein-Jung once became everything to her and vice versa. Seung-Hyo got a message and suddenly entered Seok-Ryu's room and asked her to go. Seok-Ryu was confused because she wasn't dressed up. It turned out that Seung-Hyo invited her to the airport and called Haein-Jung. Previously Haein-Jung sent a message to Seung-Hyo that he would return to the US and asked him to take care of Seok-Ryu. Seung-Hyo invited Seok-Ryu so he could say goodbye, but he asked Haein-Jung to keep his distance. He also thanked Haein-Jung for accompanying Seok-Ryu first. Seung-Hyo felt more petty, childish and impatient than Seok-Ryu thought. But he felt that his actions were right so he invited Seok-Ryu to say goodbye. Seok-Ryu would have dressed up if she had known she would come here. She looked disheveled for the last meeting. But Haein-Jung said Seok-Ryu was beautiful, he had never seen Seok-Ryu this bright. Seok-Ryu thanked him for everything. Then Haein-Jung invited her to shake hands for last time. Haein-Jung asked Seok-Ryu to be happy and not sick anymore. It seems like Seok-Ryu has found someone who is right for her. Then Haein-Jung said goodbye to Seok-Ryu. And Seok-Ryu cried seeing Haein-Jung leave. Seung-Hyo saw Seok-Ryu crying and covered her with his coat. With Seung-Hyo's understanding nature, she cried for a long time that day. After a while, she appeared with puffy eyes and walked out the door with him.